Phantom discounts are a psychological manipulation tactic where retailers display inflated original prices alongside sale prices to create the illusion of exceptional value, when in reality, the product was never intended to sell. At the higher amount, this technique exploits anchoring bias, making consumers believe they are receiving significant savings while paying prices that represent the true intended retail value. All along, the power of phantom discounts lies in their ability to establish a false reference point that skews all subsequent price evaluation. Once a customer sees a jacket marked as originally $300, now $89, their brain anchors to the $300 figure, making the $89 seem like an incredible bargain, even if the jacket was manufactured for $20 and the retailer always planned to sell it for $89. The crossed-out price creates a perception of generosity and value that has no basis in reality. The reason this technique works so effectively lies in anchoring bias, a cognitive phenomenon where people rely too heavily on the first piece of information they encounter when making decisions. The initial high price serves as a psychological anchor that influences all subsequent judgment. Even when that anchor is completely arbitrary or fabricated, the human brain struggles to evaluate absolute value. Instead, it defaults to relative comparison. When consumers see two numbers side by side, they instinctively focus on the difference rather than questioning whether either number reflects genuine market value. This is why retailers invest heavily in creating elaborate pricing displays with large crossed-out numbers and prominent sale tags. The visual contrast triggers an emotional response that bypasses rational analysis, making customers feel they have discovered a rare opportunity rather than encountered a routine sales tactic. One of the most common applications of phantom discounts appears in department stores, where perpetual sales have become the standard business model. These retailers display merchandise with inflated manufacturer suggested retail prices, knowing that the items will immediately be marked down to create the appearance of constant deals. Customers walking through stores see row after row of sale signs, creating the impression that they have stumbled upon exceptional timing, when in reality, the sale prices represent the normal everyday pricing strategy. The items were never sold at the higher price point. It exists purely as a psychological anchor. Furniture and mattress retailers exploit this technique even more aggressively, often advertising going out of business sales that continue for years. A mattress store might display a set as originally priced at $2,999, now only $999, when the actual wholesale cost is $300, and the $999 price point was always the intended sale price. The urgency created by the going out of business claim combined with the phantom discount creates a powerful psychological cocktail that drives impulsive purchases. Online retailers have refined phantom discounts into a sophisticated digital art form. E-commerce platforms display dynamic pricing with constantly updating sale percentages and countdown timers, creating the illusion that prices fluctuate based on demand or limited time. Offers a jacket listed as originally $249 marked down to $89, with a timer showing only 6 hours remaining triggers multiple psychological pressure points. The phantom original price, the artificial urgency of the countdown, and the visual prominence of the discount percentage all work together to manufacture a decision-making environment where rational evaluation becomes nearly impossible. Comparison shopping websites sometimes participate in this manipulation by displaying historical price data that includes the phantom high prices, making it appear that current pricing represents genuine deals, when algorithmic analysis of actual transaction data would reveal that products rarely, if ever, sell at the inflated reference prices. The dark side of phantom discounts extends beyond simple deception into a systematic erosion of consumer ability to evaluate true value. When entire industries operate on phantom pricing models, customers lose access to reliable reference points for determining fair market prices. This creates a shopping environment where perceived deals matter more than actual value, where the emotional satisfaction of saving money overshadows the reality that consumers are paying exactly what retailers intended all along. In extreme cases, phantom discounts have crossed legal boundaries, with regulatory agencies pursuing retailers who systematically advertise false original prices, particularly when reference prices dramatically exceed any legitimate market value for comparable products. To defend against phantom discounts, research actual market prices across multiple retailers before making purchases. If an item is marked down from $300 to $90, check whether competing retailers offer similar products at $90. Without any claimed discount, this reveals whether the sale price represents genuine value or standard market pricing. Use price tracking tools and browser extensions that monitor historical pricing data across e-commerce platforms. These tools can expose phantom discounts by showing that products never actually sold at the advertised original price. Remain skeptical of perpetual sales. If a store constantly advertises 70% off everything, the original prices are likely inflated specifically to accommodate those permanent discounts. Calculate whether the sale price fits your budget and needs, rather than being swayed by the percentage saved. A 50% discount is meaningless if the final price still exceeds what you can afford or what the product is actually worth. Understanding phantom discounts allows you to evaluate purchases based on absolute value rather than relative savings. When you recognize that original prices are often artificial anchors designed to manipulate perception, you regain control over purchase decisions, ensuring that your choices reflect genuine value assessment rather than emotional responses to manufactured deals. By focusing on final costs, competitive pricing, and actual need rather than advertised savings percentages, you transform from a target of anchoring bias into an informed consumer who makes decisions based on reality rather than retail theatre. Confirm shaming is a psychological manipulation technique where companies use guilt-loaded language in decline buttons, making users feel foolish, irresponsible, or inadequate for refusing an offer instead of presenting neutral opt-out choices. Businesses deliberately craft rejection language that attacks the user's self-image, forcing them to explicitly declare themselves as someone who makes poor decisions, lacks intelligence, or does not care about important matters. This tactic exploits the deep human need for positive self-perception and social desirability, making the act of declining feel like a public admission of personal failure. At its core, confirm shaming works by creating cognitive dissonance between how people see themselves and the identity implied by the decline button. When a pop-up offers a discount newsletter and the rejection option reads, "No thanks. I prefer paying full price," the user must either click a button that frames them as financially irresponsible or comply with the unwanted sign-up to avoid that psychological discomfort. The technique transforms what should be a simple binary choice into an emotional decision where one option preserves self-esteem and the other damages it. Most people, when forced to choose between their self-image and a minor inconvenience, will sacrifice the inconvenience. This is why confirm shaming proves so effective. At driving conversions, companies understand that humans will tolerate remarkable amounts of unwanted marketing content rather than click a button that makes them feel stupid, selfish, or careless. One of the most common applications of confirm shaming appears in e-commerce pop-up windows, where email capture forms dominate the user experience. A visitor browsing a clothing website encounters a pop-up offering 10% off their first purchase with two buttons. One reads, "Yes, I want to save money." The other reads, "No thanks, I enjoy paying full price." The asymmetry is deliberate. The acceptance button uses neutral positive language, while the decline button forces users to explicitly identify as someone who makes poor financial decisions. A pop-up for a fitness website might present, "Yes, help me get healthy" versus "No, I am fine being out of shape," turning a simple newsletter decision into a referendum on the user's health choices and personal discipline. Mobile applications exploit confirm shaming ruthlessly during permission requests and notification settings. An app requesting location access might frame the decline as "No, I do not want" personalized recommendations, turning a privacy decision into an apparent rejection of better service. A meditation app asking for notification permissions presents, "Allow notifications to build better habits" versus "No, thanks, I prefer to forget my goals," repositioning what should be a neutral user preference as a character flaw. Email marketing campaigns use confirm shaming in unsubscribe flows, where users attempting to stop receiving promotional messages encounter multiple confirm shaming barriers. A beauty brand unsubscribe page might ask, "Are you sure you want to miss exclusive offers?" with buttons labeled "Keep me updated" and "Yes, I want to miss out on deals." The language frames continued unwanted emails as the smart choice and unsubscribing as choosing to be uninformed. Subscription services deploy confirm shaming at cancellation points to reduce churn when users attempt to cancel a streaming service. They encounter confirm shaming language like, "Are you sure you want to lose access to thousands of shows?" followed by buttons labeled "No, keep my subscription" and "Yes, I want to give up entertainment." The framing suggests that cancellation represents deprivation rather than a legitimate decision about value and budget. Software subscriptions use similar tactics with cancel buttons, reading "Yes, delete my account and lose all my data permanently" versus "No, keep my valuable information," safe, transforming a routine cancellation into a dramatic choice between preservation and destruction. The manipulative power of confirm shaming lies in its ability to weaponize language against basic user autonomy. By making decline options, emotionally costly companies coerce decisions that users would not freely make in a neutral environment. This creates a pattern where consent becomes meaningless, because one option is framed as reasonable, while the other requires users to publicly declare themselves as failures. The long-term effect erodes trust between companies and customers, as users begin to recognize the manipulation behind seemingly simple interface choices. To protect yourself from confirm shaming, recognize when opt-out language is emotionally loaded rather than neutral. If a decline button makes you feel judged, inadequate, or foolish, that is deliberate manipulation designed to override your genuine preferences. Close pop-ups using browser controls rather than clicking shame language buttons. This avoids the psychological impact while achieving the same practical result. When you must interact with confirm shaming interfaces, remind yourself that the language represents corporate manipulation, not truth about your character. Declining a newsletter does not make you financially irresponsible. Refusing notifications does not mean you lack discipline. These are manufactured associations designed to exploit insecurity. Set firm boundaries around what marketing you will tolerate, regardless of how companies frame the choice. Your decisions about email subscriptions, app permissions, and service cancellations reflect your priorities and boundaries, not your worth as a person. Recognizing confirm shaming as a manipulation tactic rather than legitimate communication allows you to make choices based on your actual needs, without internalizing artificial guilt manufactured by interface designers and copywriters whose only goal is conversion optimization. Dark patterns in user interface are psychological manipulation tactics where companies deliberately design confusing, misleading, or deceptive digital experiences to trick users into purchases, subscriptions, or data sharing. They would not consciously choose these interface designs. exploit cognitive limitations, visual processing habits, and trust in digital systems to guide users toward actions that benefit the company, while appearing to offer legitimate choices. The manipulation operates at the design level, making it nearly invisible to users who believe they are navigating interfaces neutrally, when in reality, every visual element, color placement, and interaction has been strategically engineered to manufacture specific outcomes. The power of dark patterns lies in how they exploit the automated nature of digital interaction. The human brain cannot consciously process every visual element, text string, and button placement encountered during routine internet use. Instead, it relies on heuristics, visual hierarchies, and learned patterns to navigate quickly. Dark pattern designers weaponize these mental shortcuts by deliberately violating expected interface conventions, placing important information in locations users typically ignore, using visual emphasis to hide rather than highlight critical details, and creating confusing language that requires multiple careful readings to understand. By the time users realize they have been manipulated, the transaction is often complete. The data surrendered, the subscription, activated software installation processes represent one of the most aggressive applications of dark patterns, where seemingly simple next button clicks result in unwanted additional software installations. A user downloading a free PDF reader encounters an installation wizard with pre-checked boxes for browser, toolbars, search engine changes, and additional software bundles. The boxes appear in light grey text below the prominent install button, positioned exactly where users have learned not to look, because that space typically contains legal disclaimers and technical details. The language uses double negatives like "uncheck this box" if you do not want to avoid installing the additional features, forcing users to parse complex logic while simply trying to complete a routine software installation. By the time the installation completes, the user discovers their browser, homepage has changed, their default search engine has switched, and 3 additional programs are now running at startup e-commerce checkout processes. Deploy dark patterns to maximize order values and data collection. A customer ready to complete a purchase encounters a form where newsletter sign-up boxes are pre-checked. Additional warranty options are presented with the more expensive choice, highlighted in green, while the decline option appears in small grey text below. Shipping insurance is added to the cart, automatically requiring users to manually remove it if unwanted. The Continue to Payment button sits prominently centered, while a tiny text link for review order without insurance appears in light grey. In the bottom corner, the visual hierarchy communicates that the path of least resistance involves accepting all additional charges, while declining requires deliberate effort and attention to find the correct interaction points. Social media platforms and mobile applications use dark patterns extensively in privacy settings and data sharing permissions. A new user creating an account encounters a colorful, friendly interface with a large, bright button labeled Get Started with recommended settings and a small grey text link below that reads Manually configure privacy settings. The recommended settings maximize data collection, friend list access, and third-party sharing, while the manual configuration path requires navigating through multiple screens of complex options with confusing labels. Location services requests present allow as a large blue button and deny as small grey text below. Notification permissions use similar visual hierarchies, where the path to saying yes is immediate and obvious, while declining requires finding alternative text links or non-standard interface elements. Subscription cancellation processes represent perhaps the darkest application of interface manipulation, where companies make cancelling as difficult as possible. While keeping sign-up effortless, a user attempting to cancel a subscription finds no cancel button in their account settings. Instead, they must navigate to a contact page, submit a support ticket, wait for email, response, click a confirmation link in that email. Answer multiple retention questions on a new page. And finally, after 5 or 6 steps, encounter the actual cancellation confirmation. Meanwhile, signing up for the same subscription required only a single click on a prominent button. The asymmetry is deliberate, creating friction, specifically around the action that costs the company money, while keeping revenue-generating actions frictionless. The danger of dark patterns extends beyond individual transactions into a broader erosion of informed consent and user autonomy. When interfaces are deliberately designed to deceive users, cannot make genuine choices about how they share data, spend money, or interact with digital services. This transforms digital interaction into a minefield where every click potentially triggers unwanted consequences, and where users must maintain constant vigilance simply to avoid being exploited by the platforms they use. The cumulative effect creates digital environments where trust becomes impossible because the interface itself operates as an adversary rather than a tool. To defend against dark patterns, slow down during digital interactions, particularly during installations, checkouts, and account creation processes. The speed and convenience that make digital interfaces appealing also create vulnerability to manipulation by deliberately pausing to read every checkbox, review every pre-selected option, and examine every button choice. You counteract the automated decision-making that dark patterns exploit. Look for visual hierarchy manipulation. When one button appears large and colorful, while another option exists only as small gray text, assume the prominent choice benefits the company. Not you. Seek out the less obvious options before clicking the path of least resistance. During cancellation processes, expect friction and plan accordingly. If cancelling requires email verification, phone calls, or multi-step processes, schedule time specifically for that task rather than attempting it during moments of limited attention. Use browser extensions and privacy tools designed to highlight and block common dark patterns. These tools identify pre-checked boxes, hidden costs, and deceptive interface elements that individual users might miss. Take screenshots of checkout pages before final purchase to document prices, options, and terms. This creates records that can be referenced later if unexpected charges appear or if companies claim you selected options you did not choose. When companies deliberately engineer interfaces to manipulate rather than inform, they reveal that user welfare is irrelevant compared to conversion metrics and data extraction goals. Recognizing dark patterns as systemic design choices rather than interface accidents allows you to approach digital interactions with appropriate skepticism, protecting yourself through deliberate, slow navigation and constant questioning of whether prominent interface elements truly serve your interests or merely appear to while serving corporate priorities instead. Forced continuity is a psychological manipulation technique where companies automatically convert free trials or promotional periods into paid subscriptions using deliberately obscure cancellation processes and unclear renewal terms to trap customers into unwanted charges. What appears as a generous no-risk trial period functions as a carefully designed conversion funnel where the ease of starting contrasts sharply with the difficulty of stopping. This asymmetry transforms free trials from genuine product samples into sophisticated customer acquisition tactics that exploit memory limitations, busy schedules, and the psychological friction of cancellation. This tactic works because human memory and attention are finite resources, while businesses operate with systematic automated processes. A customer signs up for a 7-day free trial of a streaming service intending to cancel before charges begin. But 7 days later, that intention competes with dozens of other priorities, appointments, deadlines, and responsibilities. The streaming service, meanwhile, operates an automated billing system that never forgets, never gets distracted, and executes renewal with mechanical precision. Even customers who remember to cancel often discover that the cancellation process requires multiple steps, phone calls during business hours, or navigation through deliberately confusing account settings. By the time they locate the cancellation option and complete the required steps, the trial period has expired and the first charge has processed. Streaming platforms have perfected forced continuity mechanics, where free trial offers appear prominently during sign-up with large, colourful buttons and simple one-click enrolment. But cancellation requires users to log into account settings, navigate through multiple menu layers, locate a subscription, management page buried under privacy and billing options, click through retention offers that present increasingly desperate discounts, and finally, after 5 or 6 clicks, encounter an actual cancel button. The contrast is deliberate, making enrollment feel effortless. While cancellation feels laborious, the platforms understand that each additional step in the cancellation process increases the likelihood that users will either give up entirely or postpone the task until after charges have begun. Some services send cancellation confirmation to email, requiring users to click an additional verification link, effectively extending the cancellation process beyond the platform itself into external communication channels that users may not check regularly. Software subscriptions employ forced continuity with particular aggression, where 30-day trials convert to annual subscriptions at prices that seem modest when broken into monthly equivalents, but total hundreds of dollars when charged as a single annual fee. A user signs up for a photo editing application trial for $9.99 per month after 30 days. The trial automatically converts, but instead of charging the monthly rate, the software bills for an entire year at $119.99. The annual billing structure means that by the time users notice the charge and attempt to cancel, they have already paid for a full year, which most companies refuse to refund. Claiming the billing terms were disclosed during sign-up in small grey text below the prominent monthly pricing display. Fitness memberships and gym contracts pioneered forced continuity long before digital subscriptions adopted the model. A customer signs up for a trial membership with promises of cancel anytime flexibility, but discovers that cancellation requires in-person visits during specific hours, written notices submitted 30 days in advance, or certified letters mailed to corporate headquarters. The friction is deliberate, designed to make paying for an unused membership seem easier than navigating the cancellation bureaucracy. Diet programs and meal delivery services use similar tactics, where trial boxes ship automatically every week or month, requiring users to log in and manually skip shipments rather than opting in for each delivery. The default state is continuous purchase, putting the burden on customers to repeatedly decline rather than on companies to repeatedly obtain consent. Credit monitoring services and subscription boxes represent the most predatory applications of forced continuity, where companies offer $1 trials or free samples that require full credit card information, knowing that most customers will forget to cancel before full price charges begin. A credit monitoring service advertises $1 for 30 days of protection, but the sign-up flow includes pre-checked boxes for premium features that cost an additional $29.99 per month after the trial ends. In fine print below the sign-up button, a disclosure states that cancellation requires calling a phone number during business hours and speaking with a retention specialist who is trained to offer discounts, delays, and alternative plans to prevent actual cancellation. The entire system operates on the assumption that customers will either forget to cancel, be too busy to navigate the process, or find the friction more costly than simply accepting ongoing charges. The manipulation extends beyond individual transactions into a systematic exploitation of human cognitive limitations and time scarcity. By designing systems where starting is instant and stopping is laborious, companies create artificial conversion rates that have nothing to do with product value or customer satisfaction. Forced continuity transforms trials from risk-free product evaluation into customer acquisition traps, where the goal is not to demonstrate value, but to simply run out the clock until charges begin and cancellation friction takes over. To avoid forced continuity, traps set calendar reminders immediately after signing up for any free trial, with alerts scheduled for at least 2 days before the trial period ends, giving adequate time to navigate complex cancellation processes. Use virtual credit card numbers or prepaid debit cards for trial sign-ups, limiting potential charges to the card balance, rather than your full account. Cancel subscriptions immediately after sign-up, rather than waiting until the trial period nears completion. Many services allow you to cancel while still providing access through the originally promised trial. Duration eliminating the need to remember future cancellation deadlines. Read billing terms carefully before providing payment information, specifically checking whether trials convert to monthly or annual subscriptions and what cancellation procedures are required. Screenshot the sign-up page including all pricing claims and trial terms, creating documentation that can be referenced if disputes arise about what was disclosed during enrollment. Contact your credit card company to dispute charges. If companies refuse refunds after forced continuity conversions that were not clearly disclosed, credit card policies often favor consumers in cases where billing terms were deliberately obscured. Once you understand that free trials requiring payment information function primarily as customer acquisition traps rather than genuine product samples, you can either avoid them entirely or engage with protective measures that prevent conversion regardless of whether you remember to cancel manually. The power imbalance where companies can charge automatically, but customers must cancel manually, reveals that convenience flows in only one direction, serving business revenue optimization rather than customer choice. Price obfuscation is a psychological manipulation tactic where companies deliberately make true costs difficult to calculate using complex pricing structures, confusing unit measurements, and strategically hidden fees to prevent accurate price comparison and informed decision-making by fragmenting total costs across multiple line items, displaying prices in incomparable units, and revealing charges progressively. Throughout the purchase process, businesses create environments where consumers cannot easily determine whether they are receiving value or being systematically overcharged. The complexity serves as camouflage, allowing inflated pricing to hide behind legitimate, seeming fee structures and technical terminology. The human brain has limited capacity for complex mathematical calculations, particularly under time pressure or cognitive load. When pricing is presented simply as a single total number, evaluation is straightforward, but when that same total is broken into base price, plus processing fee, plus service charge, plus convenience fee, plus delivery fee, plus taxes, the cognitive burden increases exponentially. Each additional line item requires separate evaluation, consideration of whether it is legitimate, necessary, or inflated, and integration into a running mental total that must be compared against alternatives that may use entirely different fee structures. This is why companies invest in creating maximally complex pricing. They understand that confused customers are more likely to complete purchases than informed ones, because confusion creates decision fatigue that resolves through surrender rather than analysis. Airlines pioneered price obfuscation, transforming what was once simple ticket pricing into Baroque fee architectures, where the advertised fare represents only a fraction of the total cost. A flight advertised at $79 requires additional payment for checked baggage, $35, carry-on bags $30. Seat selection ranging from $15 to $75, depending on location priority. Boarding $25, and in-flight refreshments varying prices, the base $79 fare that attracted the customer becomes $254 or more by the time all mandatory and semi-mandatory fees are included. The obfuscation is deliberate, preventing customers from easily comparing total costs across airlines, because each carrier structures fees differently, uses different terminology for similar charges, and reveals costs at different stages of the booking process. One airline includes carry-on in the base fare, but charges for seat selection. Another charges for carry-on, but includes basic seat assignment, making true cost comparison requires spreadsheet-level analysis that most customers will not perform. Hotels employ similar obfuscation tactics, with resort fees that appear only at checkout or upon arrival. A traveller books a room advertised at $129 per night, but discovers at checkout an additional mandatory resort fee of $45 per night that covers amenities like pool access, Wi-Fi, and fitness centre use that guests assumed were included in the room. Rate the resort. Fee functions as hidden price inflation, allowing hotels to advertise lower rates for search result ranking while collecting higher actual revenues. Parking fees, facility fees, destination fees, and cleaning fees add additional layers, making the true nightly cost 50 to 80% higher than the advertised rate. The fees are structured as separate line items rather than integrated into room rates, because itemization creates the appearance of optional charges even when they are mandatory and unavoidable. Telecommunications companies have refined price obfuscation into an art form where advertised monthly rates bear little resemblance to actual bills. A mobile phone plan advertised at $40 per month becomes $67 or more after line access fees, regulatory recovery fees, administrative charges, device payment plans, and taxes are added. Internet service advertised at $59.99 per month includes additional charges for modem rental equipment, fees, installation fees, and various surcharges, with names designed to sound like government-mandated taxes, but that actually represent pure company profit. The confusion is intentional, preventing customers from accurately calculating monthly costs or comparing plans across providers. Grocery stores use price obfuscation through incomparable unit pricing, where one brand displays cost per ounce, while another shows cost per count, and a third uses cost per 100 grams, making comparison impossible without calculator and conversion table. A shopper comparing paper towels finds one brand priced at 1 cent per square foot, another at $12 per 8 rolls, and a third at 0.03 cents per sheet. The deliberately incompatible units prevent quick value assessment, forcing customers to either give up on comparison or spend significant time converting units to common measurements. Shrinkflation compounds this obfuscation, where package sizes shrink while prices remain constant or increase slightly. A cereal box that once contained 16 ounces now contains 14.3 ounces, making historical price comparison impossible and current comparison difficult. Companies that profit from price obfuscation reveal their awareness that transparency would hurt sales by investing in complexity rather than clarity. They demonstrate that confusion is not an unfortunate side effect of sophisticated pricing, but rather the intended goal. Calculate total costs before committing to purchases, demanding itemized breakdowns of all fees and refusing to proceed until complete pricing is disclosed. Use price comparison tools that aggregate total costs across complex fee structures, converting everything to comparable units. Research typical fee ranges for industries like hotels and airlines to identify when charges exceed reasonable levels. Challenge fees that appear to be company profit, disguised as government-mandated charges, particularly in telecommunications, where regulatory recovery fees often far exceed actual regulatory costs. Maintain the discipline to abandon purchases when final totals exceed budgeted amounts. regardless of time already invested in the process, by treating complexity as a warning sign rather than inevitable friction. You pressure companies toward transparency through the only mechanism they respect, which is abandoned transactions and lost revenue. Bait and switch is a psychological manipulation technique where businesses advertise an attractive product or price to lure customers, then claim unavailability and pressure them toward a more expensive alternative, relying on sunk cost bias and the inconvenience of leaving empty-handed. The advertised offer exists primarily as bait designed to generate foot traffic, phone calls, or website visits with no genuine intention of fulfilling the promised deal at the promised price. Once customers have invested time, energy, or travel in pursuing the advertised item, they become psychologically vulnerable to accepting substitutes they would have rejected if presented initially. This technique works because of sunk cost bias, the cognitive phenomenon where people continue investing in situations because of resources already committed, rather than evaluating current costs and benefits objectively. A customer who drives 30 minutes to a store, responding to an advertised television sale, encounters a salesperson who explains that the advertised model just sold out, but a better television is available for $200 more. The customer now faces a choice between leaving empty-handed after wasting an hour of time and fuel, or purchasing the more expensive television to justify the trip already taken. The store understands that many customers will choose the latter option, even though the smart financial decision is to leave because humans struggle to write off sunk costs as irrelevant to current decisions. The time already spent feels like an investment that must be recovered through purchase car. Dealerships have perfected bait and switch tactics, where advertised vehicles either never existed in inventory, existed in quantities of 1 or 2 units, or come with undisclosed conditions that make them effectively unavailable. A dealership advertises a specific model at an exceptionally attractive price, generating dozens of phone calls and showroom visits. When customers arrive, they learn that the advertised vehicle was sold this morning or is only available with a manual transmission which was not mentioned in the advertisement, or requires a trade in meeting specific criteria. The salesperson immediately pivots to showing similar vehicles at higher prices, suggesting that since the customer is already here and clearly interested in this type of vehicle, they should consider these readily available alternatives. The bait accomplished its purpose, generating qualified leads who have demonstrated interest and investment. The actual sale happens at the higher price point that was intended all along. Electronics retailers deploy bait and switch during major sales events, where doorbusters and limited quantity specials advertise extraordinary deals on televisions, laptops, or appliances, but stock only 3 to 5 units, ensuring that the vast majority of customers who arrive will find the items unavailable. Store employees direct disappointed customers towards similar products at regular prices or slightly discounted prices that still generate normal profit margins. The limited stock was never meant to satisfy demand. It existed solely to create the appearance of legitimate advertising while generating store traffic that could be converted to sales of normally priced inventory. Some retailers structure this more aggressively by advertising products that do not exist in any store inventory, using the advertisement purely as lead generation, with no intention of ever fulfilling orders at the advertised price. Real estate agents and property management companies use bait and switch with phantom listings, where attractive properties at below market prices appear in advertisements and online listings, generating inquiries and appointments. When prospective tenants or buyers contact the agent, they learn that particular property just rented or sold, but the agent has other similar properties available at higher prices. The phantom listing serves as a customer acquisition tool, generating contact information and in-person meetings that can be redirected toward properties the agent actually represents. Restaurants practice milder versions where menu specials or limited time offerings appear in advertising but prove perpetually sold out. When customers arrive, servers suggest alternative dishes at similar or higher price points, capitalizing on the customer's presence and the social awkwardness of leaving a restaurant after being seated. Online retailers have adapted bait and switch to digital environments where advertised products show as in stock during browsing but become unavailable during checkout or immediately after, with suggestions to purchase similar items. At higher prices, some sites display the bait item long enough to collect customer information, email addresses, browsing patterns, then claim inventory issues while offering alternatives. The digital environment makes this easier to execute and harder to prove, because availability can change instantly, and customers cannot verify actual stock levels. The unethical nature of bait and switch lies in its deliberate deception about availability and intent legitimate limited quantity. Sales disclose limits prominently and serve customers who arrive promptly. Bait and switch operations structure scarcity to ensure unavailability, while using that unavailability as a transition point toward more profitable alternatives. This transforms advertising from information into manipulation, using false promises to manufacture situations where customers feel compelled to purchase items they did not want at prices they did not plan to pay. Call ahead to verify advertised items are actually in stock and available at the advertised price before traveling request. That staff set aside the specific item with your name removing the just sold excuse. Walk away immediately when advertised products prove unavailable. Regardless of time already invested, the discipline to abandon the situation sends clear market signals that bait and switch tactics fail when customers refuse to be redirected. Report suspected bait and switch to consumer protection agencies, particularly when patterns suggest systematic unavailability rather than legitimate limited stock situations. Document advertisements with screenshots and saved pages, creating evidence for potential complaints. If stores cannot produce advertised items at advertised prices, your time investment represents a cost paid to learn which retailers operate with integrity and which rely on deception. That cost is worthwhile if it prevents future manipulation and channels business toward honest competitors who advertise only products they genuinely intend to sell. Hidden costs are a psychological manipulation tactic where businesses display attractive initial prices but reveal mandatory additional fees only at the final purchase stage, exploiting the commitment bias that makes customers reluctant to abandon transactions after investing time and emotional energy by structuring pricing to hide true costs until the last possible moment. Companies create situations where consumers have already decided to purchase already entered payment information, already imagined owning the product, making the revelation of additional fees feel like a minor irritation rather than a reason to reconsider the entire purchase. At its core, this technique exploits commitment and consistency bias, the psychological phenomenon where people feel compelled to follow through on decisions once they have publicly or mentally committed to them. When a customer begins a purchase process, they make a series of small commitments: clicking add to cart, entering shipping information, providing payment details. Each action represents an incremental investment in completing the transaction. By the time hidden costs appear, the customer has already committed substantial cognitive and emotional resources to the purchase, abandoning the transaction. At this late stage feels like admitting that all previous effort was wasted. Most people, when faced with this choice, will rationalize the additional costs as acceptable rather than walk away from a purchase they already mentally own. This is why companies structure their checkout flows to maximize commitment before revealing total costs. They understand that psychology, not logic, governs most purchase decisions. Concert and event ticketing represents one of the most aggressive applications of hidden costs, where advertised ticket prices bear little resemblance to final checkout totals. A customer sees a concert ticket advertised at $45 and proceeds through the purchase flow, selecting seats, choosing delivery method, and entering payment information, only to discover at the final checkout screen that the $45 ticket now costs $67.50 after service fees, convenience charges, processing fees, facility fees, and delivery charges. The fees often exceed 50% of the base ticket price, transforming what appeared as an affordable entertainment option into a significant expense. The timing of this revelation is deliberate, occurring only after the customer has invested 10 or 15 minutes in the purchase process, developed emotional attachment to attending the event, and provided all information necessary to complete the transaction. Walking away at this point requires abandoning both the time investment and the anticipated experience, making it psychologically easier to absorb the inflated costs than to start over with alternative entertainment options. Vacation rental platforms employ similar hidden cost structures, where nightly rates displayed prominently during search exclude cleaning fees, service fees, occupancy taxes, and in some cases additional guest charges that only appear during checkout. A rental advertised at $150 per night for a 3-night stay suggests a total cost of $450, but the checkout page reveals cleaning fees of $95, service fees of $67, and taxes of $43, bringing the actual total to $655, a 45% increase over the displayed rate. The platform benefits from this structure because lower displayed rates generate more clicks and initial interest while hidden fees revealed. After emotional commitment ensure completed bookings, restaurant automatic gratuity represents a more subtle form of hidden costs where large party service charges appear on bills. Without clear advance disclosure, a group celebrates at a restaurant where menu prices suggest a reasonable total cost, but the final bill includes an automatic 20% gratuity that was not mentioned on the menu or by staff. The charge transforms what seemed like budget-appropriate dining into an unexpectedly expensive meal. Diners already seated, already finished eating and facing social pressure from companions typically pay without protest. Even when the service did not warrant the mandatory tip, online marketplaces and auction sites structure hidden costs through layered fees where sellers list one price, but checkout reveals platform fees, payment processing fees, shipping costs, and sometimes buyer protection fees. A collectible listed at $30 becomes $47. After all fees are added, the marketplace profits from both the seller who pays listing fees and the buyer who pays transaction fees, with costs strategically obscured until purchase commitment is maximized. Beyond individual overcharges, hidden costs erode consumer ability to budget accurately and comparison shop effectively when advertised prices systematically exclude mandatory fees. Customers cannot make informed decisions about affordability or value. The practice creates an environment where sticker prices become meaningless, requiring consumers to always assume actual costs will substantially exceed displayed rates. This uncertainty benefits sellers by making genuine price comparison nearly impossible, while normalizing the expectation that checkout totals will always surprise abandoned transactions immediately upon discovery of hidden fees, regardless of time already invested. The willingness to walk away even after significant investment sends market signals that hidden fee structures result in lost sales rather than captured customers demand total pricing upfront before beginning purchase processes. Asking explicitly about all fees, charges, and additional costs before providing any payment information. Use browser extensions and tools designed to calculate true ticket costs, including all fees before beginning purchases. For major expenses, like vacation rentals, contact hosts or venues directly to inquire about renting without platform intermediaries who add hidden fees, screenshot advertised prices, and terms, creating documentation for credit card disputes. If hidden fees were not clearly disclosed, file complaints with consumer protection agencies and leave detailed reviews warning other customers about hidden fee practices. The effectiveness of hidden costs as manipulation depends entirely on customers completing purchases after fee disclosure by developing the discipline to abandon late-stage transactions. When fees appear, you eliminate the psychological advantage companies gain through commitment bias, forcing markets toward transparent upfront pricing where advertised costs reflect actual costs and comparison shopping becomes possible again. Countdown timer psychology is a manipulation technique where businesses display constantly ticking time limits on offers, creating artificial urgency. That triggers panic-based decision-making and bypasses rational evaluation of whether purchases are truly needed or valuable. The visual presence of a timer counting down creates immediate psychological pressure, transforming leisurely browsing into high-stakes race against the clock, where the primary concern shifts from, is this a good purchase, to will I miss this opportunity? The ticking seconds, minutes, or hours generate anxiety that companies exploit to drive impulsive buying behavior. The power of countdown timers lies in how they hijack the brain's threat detection systems. Humans evolved to respond immediately to time-sensitive dangers. A predator approaching a window of escape. Closing these survival instincts remain active in modern contexts where they serve no protective function. A countdown timer on a website triggers the same urgency response as a genuinely time-sensitive threat. Even though missing an online sale carries no actual consequences, the visual movement of the countdown, the shrinking numbers, the approach towards zero all activate stress responses that impair logical thinking and promote action over analysis. Retailers understand that anxious customers make faster decisions with less price comparison, less consideration of alternatives, and less questioning of whether they actually need the product being offered. E-commerce sites deploy countdown timers with sophisticated psychological precision, where flash sales, limited time discounts, and expiring offers dominate the shopping experience. A clothing retailer displays a banner announcing sale ends in 3 hours, 17 minutes, 42 seconds above product listings. The timer ticks down visibly, creating constant awareness of the approaching deadline. Customers who might normally browse for days comparing prices, reading reviews, and considering whether they genuinely need another jacket, instead make purchase decisions within minutes, driven by fear that this specific opportunity will vanish. The urgency is almost always artificial. The same sale or a similar promotion will appear tomorrow or next week, but the timer creates the illusion of unique opportunity. Travel booking websites have refined countdown timer manipulation into a comprehensive pressure system where multiple timers operate simultaneously. A hotel search displays room availability with messages stating 2 people are viewing this property alongside a countdown timer. Reading this price expires in 14 minutes below that. Another timer warns book within the next hour to receive free cancellation. The layered urgency creates an environment where calm, rational decision-making becomes nearly impossible. The customer facing multiple ticking countdowns feels compelled to book immediately rather than risk losing the room, the pricing, or the favorable cancellation terms, even when those same conditions will likely be available indefinitely. Online course platforms and digital product vendors use countdown timers to manufacture scarcity. Around infinitely reproducible digital goods, a course creator launches a program with enrollment closing in 72 hours, displayed prominently as a countdown timer. Even though the course content is digital, requires no physical inventory, and could accommodate unlimited students, the artificial deadline serves no logistical purpose. It exists purely to create urgency that overrides consideration of whether the course is worth the price. whether the student has time to complete it, or whether alternative courses might be superior. Flash sale websites structure their entire business models around countdown timer psychology, where products appear for limited time windows with prominent ticking countdowns, creating gamified urgency that makes shopping feel like an adrenaline-inducing activity, rather than a practical task customers develop. Compulsive checking behaviors, refreshing sites to see what new time-limited offers have appeared, making purchase decisions in seconds based primarily on the fear of missing out, rather than actual evaluation of product quality, need, or value. Event ticket sales exploit countdown timers during high-demand releases, where pre-sale access codes expire after 15 minutes, displayed as aggressive red countdowns, creating panic among fans desperate to secure tickets. The timer pressure causes customers to purchase tickets without fully considering seating locations, total costs with fees, or whether they can actually attend on the event date. The fear of missing out overrides all other decision-making factors. Most countdown timers reset, refresh, or reappear, making their urgency entirely manufactured. Test this by taking screenshots of offers with timers, then returning hours or days later to see if identical offers with fresh countdowns are running. Ignore the timer completely and bookmark products you are considering to check back after the countdown expires, verifying whether the urgency was genuine. Disable browser notifications from shopping sites that send alerts about expiring deals. Deliberately slow your decision-making process when encountering countdown timers by setting a personal waiting period of at least 24 hours before any purchase, regardless of claimed time limits. This cooling-off period allows anxiety to dissipate and rational evaluation to return. Use browser extensions that block or hide countdown timers, removing the visual urgency cues entirely. Countdown timers succeed only when they generate emotional responses that override rational thought. Once you recognize the ticking numbers as deliberate psychological manipulation rather than genuine time constraints, their power evaporates completely, allowing you to make purchase decisions based on actual need, value, and budget rather than manufactured panic about arbitrary deadlines that exist solely to exploit your anxiety. Stock scarcity illusions are a psychological manipulation tactic where retailers display false or exaggerated low inventory warnings to create panic. Through artificial scarcity, making customers believe they must purchase immediately or lose the opportunity when actual stock levels are adequate or even abundant. These manufactured scarcity messages exploit fundamental human psychology, where the fear of losing access to something triggers stronger emotional responses than the prospect of gaining it, turning routine purchase decisions into urgent competitions against other buyers and dwindling supply. Scarcity bias operates as one of the most powerful drivers of human behavior rooted in evolutionary history, where genuinely scarce resources determine survival. Modern retailers weaponize this ancient instinct by creating the perception of scarcity even when none exists. The brain responds to only 3 left in stock warnings. With the same urgency, it would apply to genuine resource competition, activating stress responses that prioritize immediate action over careful deliberation. When customers believe that walking away means losing access permanently, they shift from evaluating whether they want the product to fearing that they will miss their chance to obtain it. This emotional shift is precisely what retailers engineer through artificial scarcity displays that have no connection to actual inventory levels. Online retail platforms deploy stock scarcity illusions with sophisticated precision, where inventory count displays appear below product images, creating constant awareness of supposed limited availability. A customer browsing for headphones sees only 7 left in stock displayed in red text below the product description. This number may be entirely fabricated. It may represent only the quantity allocated for online display, while warehouse inventory holds hundreds more units. or it may be accurate but refreshed daily, so that 7 left appears consistently. Regardless of sales, the scarcity display serves one purpose: triggering urgency that converts browsers into buyers before they can compare prices, read additional reviews, or consider whether they actually need new headphones. Travel booking sites have elevated stock scarcity manipulation into comprehensive pressure systems where multiple scarcity claims operate simultaneously. A hotel search result displays only one room left at this price. Alongside other people are viewing this property, creating the impression of both limited inventory and active competition. The scarcity may be entirely artificial, with the same warnings appearing regardless of actual booking levels or actual inventory availability. A traveler checking the same hotel across multiple booking platforms often discovers that only one room left appears on each site simultaneously, revealing the impossibility of the claim. Yet the emotional impact persists because the visual presentation of scarcity triggers urgency before rational analysis can occur. E-commerce fashion sites use stock scarcity badges and low inventory alerts strategically positioned to maximize anxiety. A dress listing shows a small, red badge stating low stock, creating the impression that this specific item is nearly sold out, when in reality, the retailer may have thousands of units in inventory or may manufacture the item on demand with no actual inventory constraints. Some sites display size-specific scarcity, only 3 left in your size, targeting the exact information that makes scarcity personally relevant, even when those numbers bear no relationship to reality. Event ticketing platforms exploit scarcity illusions during high-demand sales, where only a few seats left warnings appear throughout the purchase process. A customer selecting concert tickets sees messages warning limited availability at this price level or in this section, creating urgency to complete the purchase. Quickly, the scarcity claims may reflect genuine limited inventory or may be artificial restrictions created by releasing tickets in small batches to manufacture the appearance of scarcity, even when thousands of tickets remain unsold. Online marketplaces selling limited edition or collectible items sometimes display view counts and interested buyer numbers alongside inventory, creating the impression of competitive demand. A collectible shows 14 people watching this item, suggesting active competition when those numbers may include the seller themselves. Browsing from multiple devices, automated bots, or entirely fabricated statistics designed purely to trigger scarcity-based urgency. The manipulation succeeds because scarcity claims are difficult to verify. Customers cannot access actual inventory. Databases cannot determine whether displayed numbers reflect reality or marketing fiction, and often lack the time or tools to check claims across multiple platforms. This information asymmetry allows retailers to manufacture urgency without accountability, creating purchase decisions driven by fear rather than value assessment. Test scarcity claims by returning to products hours or days later to see if low stock warnings persist or refresh. If only 3 left appears consistently for days, the scarcity is artificial use. Multiple devices or browsers to check whether the same scarcity numbers appear across different sessions, revealing manufactured rather than real inventory constraints. Compare stock warnings across multiple retailers. If every site claims limited availability for the same widely produced product, the scarcity is likely fabricated. Add items to cart without completing purchase, then return later to verify whether they remain available despite urgent low stock warnings. Research normal inventory patterns for product categories. Frequently, scarce items suggest artificial restrictions rather than genuine supply limitations. When you test scarcity claims and discover their artificial nature, repeatedly, you develop immunity to urgency manipulation. Recognizing that low inventory warnings function as psychological pressure tools rather than factual inventory reports. This skepticism allows purchase decisions to proceed at your own pace based on genuine need research and budget, rather than manufactured competition for resources that exist in abundance. Testimonial manipulation is a psychological manipulation technique where companies display fake purchased or strategically selected customer reviews to create false social proof, making products appear more popular, effective, or desirable than genuine customer experience would suggest by flooding review sections with fabricated testimonials, filtering out negative feedback, or incentivizing positive ratings. Businesses manufacture credibility that has no basis in authentic user experience, transforming the social proof mechanism from a tool for informed decision-making into a weapon for systematic deception. The foundation of this tactic lies in social proof, the psychological tendency to assume that actions and opinions of others reflect correct behavior when potential customers see hundreds of 5-star reviews. They unconsciously interpret this as evidence that the product delivers value, that the purchase decision is safe, and that they are joining a community of satisfied users. This inference works when reviews represent genuine, unbiased customer experiences, but becomes manipulation when companies control, fabricate, or curate the testimonials to present only the narrative that drives sales. The trust customers place in peer recommendations becomes the vulnerability that testimonial manipulation exploits. Review farms represent the most direct form of testimonial manipulation, where companies purchase bulk quantities of fake reviews from services that employ workers to create fraudulent accounts and post positive ratings. A seller launching a new product on an e-commerce platform pays a review farm for 55-star reviews posted over a 2-week period to create the appearance of organic customer enthusiasm. The reviews follow templates designed to sound authentic, mentioning specific product features, using casual language, and varying in length and detail to avoid pattern detection. The purchased reviews push the product higher in search rankings, attract genuine customers, and establish credibility that the seller has not earned through actual product quality. These fake testimonials often outnumber authentic reviews, creating a distorted perception of customer satisfaction that bears no relationship to reality. App stores and software platforms face endemic testimonial manipulation, where developers incentivize positive reviews by offering rewards for 5-star ratings. A mobile game displays a pop-up after users reach a certain level, asking if they are enjoying the experience. When users respond positively, the app directs them to the App Store review page. When users respond negatively, the app offers troubleshooting or simply dismisses the pop-up without requesting a review. This asymmetric review solicitation ensures that only satisfied users are guided to leave public feedback, while dissatisfied users never receive encouragement to share their experiences. The resulting review profile shows artificially inflated ratings that misrepresent the actual user experience. Distribution. Service businesses use review gating to control which customer experiences become public testimonials. A restaurant implements a 2-stage feedback system where diners first rate their experience privately through a tablet or email. If the rating is 4 or 5 stars, the system asks the customer to post their positive experience on public review sites. If the rating is 3 stars or lower, the system thanks them for private feedback but never prompts public sharing. This strategic filtering allows businesses to cultivate overwhelmingly positive public review profiles, while suppressing negative experiences, creating the false impression of consistent excellence. E-commerce platforms selling physical products cherry-pick testimonials for display on product pages, where thousands of reviews exist but only the most enthusiastic appear in prominent positions. A product with an average 3.2-star rating across all reviews displays only 5-star testimonials on its main page with generic, highly rated badges. that obscure the actual rating distribution customers who do not dig into full review sections. See only carefully curated, positive feedback, creating inflated expectations that the product cannot meet. Companies also deploy testimonial manipulation through fake before and after photos using stock images or paid models. Rather than actual customers, a supplement company displays dramatic transformation. Images attributed to real customer testimonials when the photos actually come from professional fitness models or unrelated weight loss journeys. The visual testimonials create powerful social proof, especially when combined with fabricated written reviews that reference the same transformative results. Testimonial manipulation becomes particularly harmful when it affects purchases where quality and safety matter: medications, supplements, electronics, with safety implications, or services requiring professional expertise become dangerous when fake reviews hide genuine problems or inflate capabilities beyond reality. Customers making decisions based on manipulated testimonials may waste money on ineffective products, or worse, expose themselves to harm from products that genuine reviews would have flagged as problematic. Look for verified purchase indicators on e-commerce reviews, though recognize that even these can be gamed through various schemes. Check review date distributions. If hundreds of 5-star reviews appeared within days of product launch, suspect manipulation. Read 3-star reviews preferentially, as they tend to provide balanced, genuine perspectives, while extreme ratings often reflect incentivized or fake content. Compare review language across multiple testimonials. If phrasing or specific compliments repeat verbatim across supposedly independent reviews, they likely come from templates. Use review analysis tools and browser extensions designed to detect fake review patterns, checking for suspicious account activity, repetitive language, and unnatural rating distributions. Seek third-party review aggregators and independent testing organizations that evaluate products without manufacturer influence. Cross-reference testimonials against other platforms. If a product has stellar reviews on its own website, but poor ratings on independent platforms, trust the independent sources. Understanding that testimonial sections often reflect marketing strategy rather than genuine customer consensus allows you to approach reviews with appropriate skepticism, seeking multiple sources, demanding verification, and recognizing that perfect ratings typically indicate manipulation rather than excellence. By prioritizing independent verified critical reviews over curated promotional testimonials, you make purchase decisions based on authentic product performance rather than manufactured social proof designed to exploit your trust in peer recommendations. Native advertising disguise is a psychological manipulation technique where companies create paid promotional content formatted to appear identical to organic editorial articles or social media posts, exploiting trust in editorial independence to bypass advertising skepticism. These advertisements masquerade as journalism, opinion pieces, or authentic user content, deliberately blurring the line between paid promotion and independent information to make commercial messages appear as credible, unbiased sources. Trust in editorial content operates on an implicit understanding that journalists, editors, and content creators maintain independence from commercial interests. When readers encounter an article on a news website, they assume the content has been researched, fact-checked, and published based on newsworthiness rather than payment. This trust extends to social media, where personal posts from friends, influencers, and followed accounts carry credibility that explicit advertisements lack. Native advertising exploits this trust by mimicking editorial or social content so completely that readers cannot distinguish paid promotion from independent information. The format matches the surrounding content precisely, using identical fonts, layouts, and stylistic conventions. The only indication of sponsorship often appears in small light-colored text. Easily missed during casual browsing, stating sponsored content or partner content in ways designed to avoid drawing attention. News websites and digital publications deploy native advertising throughout their editorial content, where sponsored articles appear in the same feeds with the same visual presentation as genuine journalism. A technology news site publishes an article about cloud computing innovations that reads like typical tech journalism, discussing industry trends, featuring expert quotes, and analyzing market developments. Only the tiny label-branded content in 8-point grey text reveals that the article is actually paid promotion from a cloud services company designed to position that company as a thought leader. The content mimics journalistic style so effectively that readers absorb the promotional message while believing they are consuming independent analysis. Social media platforms have become saturated with native advertising, where influencer posts, product placements, and brand partnerships appear in feeds alongside personal content. From friends and family, an influencer posts a photo at a resort with an enthusiastic caption about their amazing vacation. The post looks identical to their usual personal content, receiving likes and comments from followers who believe they are viewing authentic life updates when in reality the post is paid promotion from the resort with contractual requirements about what must be shown, and said disclosure tags like aid or sponsored appearing consistently, often buried in long hashtag strings or omitted entirely, followers scrolling quickly through feeds see the content as genuine recommendation from someone they trust rather than recognizing it as purchased advertising. Magazine and newspaper advertorials represent the traditional form of native advertising, where full-page advertisements are formatted to look like feature articles, using the publication's standard layout fonts and design elements. A fashion magazine runs a 4-page spread about skincare routines that appears indistinguishable from the magazine's editorial beauty content. The article discusses skincare science interviews, dermatologists, and recommends specific products. The subtle label advertisement in the header is the only indication that this content was purchased by a skincare company and exists solely to promote their product. Line readers flipping through the magazine absorb the promotional content as editorial recommendation, giving it credibility that explicit advertisements would never receive. Podcast native advertising integrates promotional content directly into show content, where hosts read ad scripts in their normal conversational tone, making commercial messages sound like personal recommendations. A true crime podcast host transitions seamlessly from discussing a case to discussing the benefits of a meal kit service using the same narrative voice and enthusiasm, making the advertisement feel like part of the show content rather than an interruption. Listeners who trust the host's judgment on investigative matters unconsciously extend that trust to product recommendations that are actually paid. Sponsorship video content platforms allow native advertising through product placement and integrated sponsorships, where brands pay creators to feature products within content in ways that appear organic. A tech reviewer discusses their daily carry items casually, featuring a specific wallet brand without clearly disclosing that the entire video concept was sponsored by that brand. Viewers believe they are watching authentic content sharing genuine preferences when they are actually consuming carefully constructed promotion. When companies deliberately obscure the line between paid promotion and independent content, they undermine the entire foundation of editorial trust that allows people to distinguish credible information from commercial messaging. Systematic deployment of native advertising creates media environments where nothing can be trusted because any apparently independent content might actually be purchased promotion disguised as editorial judgment. Approach all content with heightened skepticism, particularly when it praises specific brands or products. Look for sponsorship disclosures, however subtle, including labels like sponsored partner content, branded content, or similar terminology. Even when these appear in small text, recognize that their presence indicates paid promotion rather than editorial independence on social media. Check for disclosure tags in captions and hashtag strings, though be aware that missing disclosures do not guarantee independence, as many sponsored posts omit required disclosures. Evaluate whether content serves an informational purpose or primarily promotes specific products or brands. Promotional intent suggests native advertising even without explicit disclosure. Follow journalists and creators who maintain clear boundaries between editorial and sponsored content, supporting those who resist native advertising pressure through ad blockers or paid subscriptions. Research products independently rather than relying on any single source, particularly sources that might benefit from your purchase decision. Native advertising succeeds by exploiting the trust gap between how people perceive content and how that content was actually created. Once you train yourself to question the independence of all content, particularly when it features brands or products prominently, you protect yourself from absorbing promotional messages disguised as credible information, maintaining the ability to distinguish genuine editorial judgment from purchased influence dressed in editorial clothing. Choice overload is a psychological manipulation technique where businesses deliberately present excessive product options, creating decision fatigue that causes customers to either abandon purchases entirely or default to suggested choices that benefit the company rather than the consumer. By overwhelming cognitive capacity with too many alternatives, retailers transform what should be empowering selection processes into paralyzing experiences where customers cannot effectively evaluate options and instead rely on whatever guidance the company provides through strategic defaults, highlighting, or recommendation algorithms. The human brain has limited cognitive capacity for processing and comparing alternatives. Research in decision psychology demonstrates that while some choice is desirable, too much choice becomes counterproductive, creating anxiety, stress, and decision paralysis when faced with 3 or 4 options. People can meaningfully evaluate differences, consider trade-offs, and make confident selections when faced with 30 or 40 options. The evaluation process becomes overwhelming, requiring cognitive resources that exceed what most people can comfortably deploy during routine shopping. The result is either decision avoidance, where customers give up entirely, or decision delegation, where customers simply accept whatever option is presented as recommended or popular, or default, allowing the retailer to control outcomes while maintaining the appearance of customer choice. Streaming entertainment platforms exemplify choice overload, where thousands of available titles make selection so difficult that users spend more time browsing than watching a customer opening a streaming service. Encounters an overwhelming catalogue spanning multiple genres, decades, and formats with minimal guidance beyond algorithmic recommendations that reflect viewing patterns rather than actual quality. The abundance that should represent value instead creates paralysis as users scroll endlessly through options, unable to commit to any selection, because another, potentially better choice might exist just a few more scrolls away. The platforms respond to this paralysis by implementing autoplay features that begin playing content after brief browsing periods, effectively making the selection for customers who have become too overwhelmed to choose. The autoplay content is not neutral. It reflects platform priorities, promoting shows the service wants to boost rather than what users would select through deliberate evaluation. Restaurant menus employing choice overload present diners with hundreds of items spanning multiple cuisines and preparation styles, making informed selection impossible. A casual dining chain offers a menu with over 150 entrees, creating cognitive overload that pushes diners toward whatever items are highlighted as signature dishes, house specialties, or server recommendations. The recommendations are not neutral. They steer customers toward high-margin items or dishes the restaurant wants to move, regardless of whether those items best match customer preferences. The overwhelming menu transforms what should be personalized dining choices into guided selections, where the restaurant maintains control through strategic emphasis. Within manufactured chaos, insurance marketplaces, and healthcare plan selection processes. Weaponized choice overload in contexts where decisions carry significant financial and health implications. A consumer shopping for health insurance encounters dozens of plans with varying deductibles, co-pays networks, prescription coverage, and out-of-pocket maximums, creating comparison matrices too complex for non-experts to evaluate meaningfully. The overwhelming complexity pushes consumers toward default options, often the plan presented first or marked as most popular, even when those defaults may not align with their actual healthcare needs or financial situations. The insurance industry benefits from this confusion because bewildered customers are less likely to shop aggressively for better rates or coverage. Investment platforms present choice overload through thousands of available funds, stocks and investment vehicles, making portfolio construction overwhelming for average investors. Faced with this complexity, many investors simply select target date funds or default allocations that may carry higher fees or inappropriate risk levels compared to personalized selections they would make with proper guidance and manageable option sets. Technology purchase decisions suffer from choice overload, where minor specification differences across dozens of similar products create analysis paralysis. A customer shopping for headphones encounters hundreds of models with varying impedance frequency, response driver size, and connectivity options, most of which they do not understand well enough to meaningfully compare. The confusion drives reliance on whatever model appears first in search results or carries the most reviews, rather than systematic evaluation of which specifications actually matter for their use case. Narrow your criteria before shopping by identifying the 3 to 5 features that truly matter for your needs. Creating a manageable evaluation framework. Limit yourself to comparing no more than 5 options at a time, preventing cognitive overload that leads to poor decisions or decision avoidance. Ignore recommended and default selections until you have completed your own evaluation, as these suggested options serve retailer interests, not yours. Use decision aids like comparison charts and filtering tools to reduce option sets to manageable levels. Before beginning serious evaluation, recognize that feelings of overwhelm indicate too many choices rather than insufficient research, giving yourself permission to eliminate options aggressively based on simple deal-breaker criteria. Choice overload persists as a manipulation tactic because it appears to benefit customers through abundance and selection freedom when it actually benefits retailers by creating conditions where customers cannot meaningfully exercise choice and instead defer to company-guided defaults presented as helpful recommendations. Understanding that more options do not equal better outcomes allows you to approach purchase decisions with intentional limitation, seeking the smallest meaningful choice set rather than the largest, protecting your cognitive resources for actual evaluation rather than exhausting them through pointless abundance. Default bias exploitation is a psychological manipulation tactic where companies pre-select options, inform settings, or purchase flows, knowing that most users will not change default selections, allowing businesses to maximize revenue, data collection, or compliance through strategic initial settings. This technique operates on the principle of inertia, where maintaining the status quo requires no effort while making changes requires deliberate action, even when those changes would better serve the user's interests, by carefully engineering which options appear selected by default companies. Guide decisions without appearing to restrict choice, maintaining the illusion of autonomy while structuring environments where one outcome is dramatically more likely than alternatives. People accept defaults for multiple reinforcing reasons: cognitive effort required to evaluate and change settings competes with limited attention and time making acceptance easier than analysis. Trust in authority suggests that default settings represent recommended or standard choices, making deviation feel like going against expert guidance. Status quo bias creates psychological comfort with whatever appears normal or established, making change feel risky even when change would be beneficial. The combination of these factors means that default selections dramatically influence outcomes, with acceptance rates often exceeding 90% for pre-selected options, compared to 10 to 20% for identical options that require active selection. Charitable donation forms exploit default bias through pre-selected giving amounts where the highest donation tier appears checked by default. A fundraising page displays monthly donation options of $10, $25, $50, and $100, with the $100 option pre-selected donors who do not carefully review the form before submitting payment information. Make contributions far exceeding what they intended. The charity maximizes revenue, not through persuasion about their mission, but through interface design that makes the most profitable outcome. The path of least resistance. Some organizations take this further by pre-selecting recurring monthly donations as the default, requiring donors to actively opt into one-time gifts, transforming what donors believed were single contributions into ongoing financial commitments. Software installation wizards use default bias to install additional, unwanted programs through pre-checked boxes during setup. A user installing a PDF reader encounters an installation screen with multiple checkboxes for installing browser toolbars, changing default search engines, and adding additional software. All boxes appear checked by default, with small font explanations buried between the options. Users, clicking through the installation quickly without carefully examining each screen, inadvertently agree to multiple unwanted installations that slow their system, change their browser behavior, and potentially compromise privacy. The software company generates revenue from bundling partners for each successful additional installation, making default exploitation directly profitable. E-commerce checkout processes pre-select premium shipping options, warranty additions, and newsletter sign-ups, maximizing order values through default exploitation. A customer completing a purchase finds express shipping pre-selected, despite standard shipping meeting their needs. The warranty protection checkbox is pre-checked, adding 15% to the purchase price newsletter, and promotional email options are activated by default, enabling marketing communications. The customer must take deliberate action to deselect these additions, recognizing their presence and understanding that unchecking is possible. Many customers either miss the pre-selected additions entirely or assume they are mandatory rather than optional, resulting in purchases that exceed intended spending. Subscription services structure account creation with defaults that maximize data sharing and communication. A new user creating an account encounters settings for email notifications, promotional messages, data sharing with partners, and public profile visibility, all toggled to maximum sharing and communication by default. The user must navigate through multiple settings, screens, finding and disabling each option individually to achieve privacy levels they actually want. The default configuration serves company interests through data monetization and marketing access, while requiring significant user effort to achieve reasonable privacy. Privacy settings across digital platforms consistently default toward maximum data collection and minimal user control. Social networks set profile visibility to public location tracking to always enabled and data sharing with third-party apps, to allowed, forcing users who want privacy to manually restrict each setting. Individually, the asymmetry is deliberate, making data collection effortless for companies while making privacy protection laborious for users. Review all form selections before submitting, whether for purchases, subscriptions, or account creation, verifying what is pre-checked and whether those selections align with your intentions. Uncheck newsletter marketing and promotional options, by default in any form, unless you actively want those communications. Verify donation amounts. Before payment, confirming that the selected tier matches your intended giving level, not the pre-selected maximum during software installations. Choose custom or advanced setup options rather than express or recommended settings, allowing you to review and control what gets installed. Disable data sharing and maximize privacy settings immediately upon account creation, rather than accepting whatever defaults the platform provides. Default selections reveal company priorities when businesses consistently pre-select options that maximize their revenue data access or marketing reach while requiring user effort to choose alternatives that better serve user interests. They demonstrate that interface design functions as manipulation rather than service by approaching all defaults with suspicion and taking time to review selections before confirming you reclaim control over decisions that companies attempt to make through strategic pre-selection. Sunk cost exploitation in sales is a psychological manipulation technique where salespeople strategically create small commitments, time investments, or emotional connections early in the purchase process, making customers feel too invested to walk away. When unfavorable terms or higher prices are later revealed, the tactic transforms initial low-stakes engagements into psychological traps, where abandoning the transaction feels like wasting everything already invested, even when continuing means accepting outcomes that contradict the customer's original intentions or budget. Humans struggle with sunk cost reasoning. The tendency to continue investing in situations because of resources already committed rather than evaluating current costs and benefits objectively. This cognitive bias developed in contexts where persistence often led to success but becomes exploitable in commercial environments where salespeople understand the psychology better than customers do. Once someone has invested time, energy, or emotional attachment in a potential purchase, that investment creates psychological momentum toward completion, regardless of whether the final terms are favorable. Walking away requires admitting that all previous effort was wasted, an admission that feels more painful than accepting suboptimal outcomes. The longer the investment period and the more personal the connection, the stronger the psychological pressure to complete the transaction. Car dealerships have refined sunk cost exploitation into comprehensive sales systems where every step before price discussion increases customer investments. A salesperson greets a customer, browsing the lot, and spends 30 minutes discussing their needs, preferences, and lifestyle, establishing rapport and personal connection before any mention of specific vehicles or pricing. The conversation creates emotional investment in the relationship, making the customer want to reward the salesperson's time and friendliness. With a purchase, next comes the test drive, where the customer spends 15 to 20 minutes experiencing ownership, visualizing themselves in the vehicle, and developing emotional attachment. Finally, the negotiation begins, but by this point the customer has invested over an hour. They have formed a relationship with the salesperson, they have experienced the vehicle, they have mentally committed to ownership. Walking away means admitting this entire investment was pointless, making them vulnerable to accepting prices and terms they would have immediately rejected without the preceding investment period. Home improvement consultations employ similar exploitation, where sales representatives offer free in-home assessments that involve extensive time commitments. A customer requesting a window replacement quote receives a sales visit lasting 2 to 3 hours, during which the representative measures every window, discusses energy efficiency options, presents complex financing structures, and builds personal rapport. By the time pricing is revealed, the customer has invested an entire evening, they feel, Obligated to the representative, for the free assessments they have learned extensive details about window technology that makes other quotes seem less informed. Walking away means scheduling another multi-hour consultation with a competitor, starting the entire exhausting process. Over many customers simply accept the quote, regardless of price, to avoid reinvesting. Similar time elsewhere. Timeshare presentations represent the most aggressive application of sunk cost exploitation, where companies lure prospects with free vacation packages contingent on attending sales presentations, lasting 4 to 6 hours. The presentations use high-pressure tactics, psychological manipulation, and exhaustive repetition, but the primary weapon is time investment. After sitting through hours of presentations, touring properties and discussing vacation dreams, customers become desperate to leave. The only escape route is either purchasing the timeshare or explicitly refusing over and over, despite escalating pressure tactics. Many customers purchase simply to end the ordeal, having invested so much time that leaving empty-handed feels intolerable. Retail furniture and mattress stores use prolonged browsing experiences to create investment. Customers spend hours testing mattresses or sofas with sales associates who offer refreshments, discuss personal preferences, and build friendly relationships. The extended time investment makes quick exits feel awkward and wasteful, even when prices exceed budget or products do not fully meet needs. Multi-step online checkout processes exploit sunk cost bias by requiring extensive information entry before revealing total costs. A customer adds items to cart, then spends 10 minutes entering shipping details, payment information, and account creation data, only to discover hidden fees or higher than expected totals at final confirmation. Having completed most of the purchase process, many customers simply confirm rather than abandon and restart the entire process. Recognize when sales processes are designed to maximize your time and emotional investment. Before discussing terms, set strict time limits for sales interactions, refusing to extend beyond planned durations. Regardless of pressure, discuss pricing early in conversations. Before investing significant time or emotional energy, be willing to walk away from any situation where time investment is being weaponized against your judgment. Remember that time already spent is gone, whether you complete the purchase or not. The only relevant question is whether the current offer meets your needs at acceptable terms, not whether leaving means wasting past investment. Maintaining this perspective requires conscious effort, but prevents manipulation through manufactured obligation, where your own sunk time becomes the salesperson's most effective closing tool. Free trial deception is a psychological manipulation tactic where companies advertise no-cost trial periods but design cancellation processes to be deliberately difficult, time-sensitive, or completely obscure, ensuring high conversion to paid subscriptions through customer forgetfulness, inconvenience, or confusion. What appears as risk-free product sampling functions as customer acquisition. Machinery engineered to maximize the percentage of users who forget to cancel, fail to navigate complex cancellation procedures, or simply give up when faced with deliberately frustrating termination processes. This manipulation succeeds by exploiting the asymmetry between enrollment and cancellation. Friction signing up requires a single click, immediate access, and minimal information. Beyond payment credentials, cancelling requires navigating account settings, finding deliberately buried cancellation options, completing multi-step verification processes, and sometimes calling customer service during limited business hours. The imbalance is strategic, making the path into paid subscription effortless, while making the path out exhausting. Companies understand that each obstacle in the cancellation process increases the likelihood that users will either miss the trial deadline entirely or decide that paying for an unwanted service is less annoying than completing the cancellation gauntlet. Streaming platforms, perfect free trial deception. Through one-click sign-up paired with labyrinthine cancellation processes, a customer signs up for a 7-day free trial in under 30 seconds, providing only email and payment information. The service immediately grants access, encouraging binge watching and habit formation. Cancelling requires logging into account settings on desktop, not mobile, navigating through multiple menu screens labeled with intentionally confusing terms like membership preferences or billing options, then confirming cancellation through several warning screens designed to create doubt about the decision. Some services require users to chat with retention specialists who are trained to offer discounts, delays, or appeals to emotion before finally processing cancellation. Requests. The asymmetry ensures that many users who intended to use only the free trial become paying subscribers simply because cancellation required more effort than they were willing to invest. Software subscriptions deploy free trial deception with annual billing traps where monthly trial pricing converts to annual charges. A user signs up for photo editing software advertised at $9.99 per month after the 30-day trial, expecting to either cancel or pay the monthly rate. Instead, the trial converts to an annual subscription, charging $119.99 as a single payment. The annual billing structure means that discovering the charge and attempting to cancel results in lost money anyway, as most companies refuse refunds beyond short grace periods. The disclosure of annual billing terms appears in fine print during sign-up, buried below prominent monthly pricing displays, where users focused on starting the trial miss the actual billing structure entirely. Diet and meal delivery programs use free trial deception through automatic recurring shipments, where trial boxes are followed by full-price deliveries without explicit reorder confirmation. A customer signs up for a trial week of prepared meals. At reduced cost, the meals arrive. The customer tries them but makes no decision about continuing. Nevertheless, a full-price shipment arrives the following week because the default setting is continuous delivery requiring active cancellation rather than active reordering. The trial terms buried in checkout disclosures stated that failure to cancel constitutes consent for ongoing shipments at full price, transforming inaction into expensive recurring purchases. Beauty and subscription box services combine free trial deception with hard-to-find cancellation links, where account settings provide options to pause, skip, or delay shipments, but hide actual cancellation behind additional support ticket systems. Users attempting to cancel discover they must email customer service, use live chat during specific hours, or call phone numbers. With long hold times, the friction is deliberate, designed to make paying for one or two more boxes seem easier than persisting through the termination process. Set calendar alerts immediately after any trial sign-up with reminders scheduled 3 days before trial expiration, providing adequate time to navigate cancellation procedures. Use virtual credit card numbers from privacy services that allow setting spending limits or expiration dates, preventing charges even if cancellation fails. Consider cancelling immediately after sign-up, as many services maintain trial access through the full period, regardless of when cancellation occurs, eliminating the need to remember future deadlines. Read trial terms carefully before providing payment information, specifically identifying whether billing is monthly or annual, and whether cancellation requires phone calls or can be completed online. Screenshot trial sign-up pages, including all pricing and billing disclosures, creating documentation for credit card disputes. If companies charge amounts that were not clearly disclosed during enrollment, free trials requiring payment information exist primarily to convert forgetful or friction-averse users into paying customers rather than to demonstrate product value. Understanding this reality allows you to either avoid payment-linked trials entirely or engage only with protective measures that prevent charges regardless of whether company-designed obstacles prevent timely cancellation. The convenience of instant trial access comes at the cost of friction-based conversion systems, where business models depend on exploiting the gap between easy enrollment and difficult departure. Subscription traps are psychological manipulation tactics where companies make signing up for recurring payments effortless through one-click enrollment but create labyrinthine cancellation processes requiring phones, calls, specific time windows, or multiple confirmation steps to prevent customers from easily ending unwanted subscriptions. This asymmetry between enrollment and termination is not accidental oversight, but deliberate business strategy, where revenue depends on maintaining subscribers who want to cancel but cannot navigate the deliberately complex exit procedures. The business model underlying subscription traps prioritizes customer retention over customer satisfaction, treating cancellation as a problem to be prevented through friction rather than as legitimate consumer choice. Companies invest significant resources in streamlining sign-up experiences with single-click subscriptions, automatic renewals, and minimal information requirements, ensuring that converting browsers into subscribers happens with minimal cognitive burden once subscribed. However, the same companies deliberately obstruct cancellation through systems designed to exhaust, frustrate, or confuse users, attempting to end services they no longer want. This strategic imbalance reveals that subscriptions are not voluntary ongoing agreements, but rather enrollment traps where entering is easy and leaving requires determination, persistence, and often significant time investment. Fitness memberships pioneered subscription trap mechanics, where monthly dues create steady revenue streams protected by cancellation processes designed to discourage termination. A member wanting to cancel discovers they cannot do so through the website or app, where they manage all other account functions. Instead, they must visit the physical gym location during staffing hours, fill out paper termination forms, and sometimes provide 30 days advance written notice for cancellations to take effect. The requirement for in-person cancellation creates enormous friction, particularly for members who joined specifically to avoid gym anxiety or who moved away from the area. Making physical visits difficult, some gyms require certified mail cancellation notices or notarized documents, adding bureaucratic obstacles that make paying for a few more months of unused membership seem easier than navigating the termination maze. Magazine and newspaper subscriptions employ cancellation obstruction through phone-only termination policies, where automated renewal happens seamlessly, but stopping renewal requires calling customer service. During business hours, a subscriber attempting to cancel online finds no cancellation option in account settings. Instead, a small text link states to cancel. Please call this number during the call. They encounter long hold times, followed by retention specialists trained to offer discounts, delays, or appeals to continue the subscription. The phone requirement alone prevents many cancellations, as people avoiding phone calls for anxiety or convenience. Reasons simply maintain unwanted subscriptions rather than make the dreaded call. Software subscriptions hide cancellation options deep within account settings behind multiple confirmation screens, and retention offers a user navigating to account management, finds options for changing plans, updating payment methods, and managing devices, but no clear cancel subscription button. Clicking through billing settings reveals a small text link, Manage Subscription, which leads to a new page with upgrade options, and a smaller link, End Subscription, which triggers a pop-up warning about losing access, another pop-up offering a discount to stay, and finally, after 3 or 4 clicks through warnings, and offers a confirmation screen that completes cancellation. The multi-step process, with the repeated opportunities to reconsider, causes many users to give up. Partway through maintaining their subscriptions, streaming and digital content services structure cancellation to require desktop access, when most usage happens on mobile apps. Users attempting to cancel through their phones, where they signed up and watch content, discover that cancellation is only available through the desktop website requiring them to remember to cancel later when at a computer or struggle with mobile web browsers. To complete the process, the device mismatch creates a delay, during which users either forget or decide the hassle is not worth the savings. Check subscription billing regularly to identify recurring charges for services no longer used or wanted, setting aside specific time to systematically cancel unwanted subscriptions rather than attempting cancellations during moments of frustration. Use online services that help navigate cancellation processes by providing direct cancellation links, script templates for retention calls, or even handling cancellation on your behalf. Contact your bank or credit card company to block charges from specific merchants. If companies refuse to honor cancellation requests or make cancellation genuinely impossible, document all cancellation attempts with screenshots, saved emails, and call records creating evidence for disputes and regulatory complaints. Companies that make cancellation difficult reveal that they prioritize extracting revenue from captive customers over providing value that earns voluntary ongoing payment. When signing up requires one click, but cancelling requires phone calls during business hours, or physical visits, or buried multi-step processes. The subscription is not a service agreement, but a customer retention trap designed to benefit from friction exhaustion and the hope that monthly charges are small enough that customers will tolerate them rather than fight through deliberately obstructive termination procedures. Charm pricing is a psychological manipulation technique where businesses set prices just below round numbers using 99-cent endings to create the perception of significantly lower cost. Exploiting the left-digit effect, where consumers focus on the first number rather than processing the full price of product priced at $19.99 registers psychologically as closer to $19 than to $20. Even though the 1 cent difference is economically meaningless, this pricing strategy appears throughout retail environments, from grocery stores to luxury retailers, because it reliably increases sales compared to round number pricing, despite the transparent nature of the tactic. The left-digit effect explains why charm pricing persists. Even though consumers consciously understand that $19.99 and $20 are functionally equivalent, the human brain processes prices quickly using mental shortcuts rather than careful calculation. When reading prices left to right, the first digit receives disproportionate weight in forming overall price impressions. $19.99 gets mentally categorized with the teens rather than the 20s, creating a perception of being substantially cheaper. Even though the difference is trivial, this cognitive shortcut served useful purposes in environments requiring rapid evaluation, but becomes exploitable in commercial contexts where every price is strategically set to trigger these automatic processing biases. Retail stores apply charm pricing almost universally, where products at 99-cent price points dramatically outnumber round number prices. A clothing retailer prices shirts at $29, $99, $49, $99, and $79.99, rather than $30, $50, and $80. The 99-cent endings create the impression of deals or value pricing, even when profit margins remain identical to what they would be. With round numbers, grocery stores extend this to 95 and 97-cent endings, where milk at $3.97 per gallon seems cheaper than $4. Despite the 3-cent difference being irrelevant to purchase decisions, the consistency of charm pricing across product categories trains consumers to expect 99-cent endings, making round numbers appear expensive by comparison. Gas stations pioneered even more granular charm pricing with 0.9 cent endings, where fuel prices display as $3.99 and 0.9 cents per gallon. The fractional cent has no meaningful economic value, cannot be paid individually, and exists purely to make prices appear lower than the next cent up. The 0.9 pricing is so ubiquitous in fuel retail that consumers no longer consciously notice it, yet it continues to influence price perception, making $3.99 seem substantially cheaper than $4. Luxury retailers employ charm pricing selectively, using $95 endings to maintain premium positioning while still exploiting left-digit effects. A high-end watch priced at $4,995 benefits from appearing in the $4,000 range rather than the $5,000 range, even though the $5 difference is negligible relative to the total price. The charm pricing allows the retailer to maintain the psychological positioning of being below $5,000 while extracting nearly all the revenue they would get at that round number. Online retailers use charm pricing in combination with additional psychological tactics, where 99-cent prices appear alongside crossed-out higher round numbers. A product listed as was $49, now $39.99, combines phantom discounts with charm pricing, creating layered manipulation where the 99-cent ending makes $39 seem much lower than $40, while the reference price anchor makes the discount appear substantial. E-commerce platforms sometimes test different prices across users, where some see round numbers and others see charm prices. The data consistently shows higher conversion rates for 99-cent pricing, even among educated consumers who consciously understand the tactic, suggesting that awareness does not eliminate its effectiveness. The automatic nature of left-digit processing means that even knowing about charm pricing does not prevent it from influencing perception. Round up mentally when evaluating prices, treating $19.99 as $20 and $49.95 as $50. In your calculations, this conscious correction counteracts the left-digit effect, allowing more accurate price comparison. Compare prices by rounding to the nearest $5 or $10, eliminating the artificial precision that charm pricing exploits. Recognize that 99-cent endings are strategic pricing, not actual deals. Discount claims that compare round numbers to charm prices like save $10 when actual difference is $9.01 represent misleading savings calculations. Charm pricing succeeds because it exploits automatic processing that happens faster than conscious thought. The 1-cent difference is transparent yet effective because the brain's initial price impression forms before rational analysis can correct it. By deliberately slowing down price processing and forcing yourself to round up, you can counteract this manipulation, ensuring that purchase decisions reflect actual prices rather than left-digit illusions that make everything seem cheaper than it truly is. Prestige pricing is a psychological manipulation tactic where companies deliberately set prices far higher than production costs or competitor pricing to create the illusion of superior quality, luxury status, or exclusivity, exploiting the assumption that expensive automatically means better. This strategy inverts normal market logic, where competition drives prices down, instead using high prices as a signal of value that justifies itself through psychological associations between cost and quality, regardless of whether actual product superiority exists. Price functions as a quality signal in markets where consumers cannot easily evaluate products before purchase. When someone encounters a bottle of wine priced at $15 and another at $150, the price difference suggests corresponding quality differences, even when blind taste tests might reveal no preference or even preference for the cheaper option. The brain uses price as a proxy for quality, particularly in categories like wine, art, fashion, and technology, where objective evaluation requires expertise. Most consumers lack luxury. Brands exploit this by maintaining prices far above production costs, knowing that lower prices would signal lower quality, destroying the brand positioning that commands premium margins. The high price is not a reflection of value, but rather a creator of perceived value. Luxury fashion demonstrates prestige, pricing most transparently where production costs bear little relationship to retail prices. A handbag that costs $200 to manufacture sells for $3,000, not because materials or craftsmanship justify that price, but because the $3,000 price point signals exclusivity status and luxury. Lowering the price to a more reasonable markup would destroy the brand's luxury positioning, making the product less desirable to target customers who purchase specifically. Because the high price excludes most people, the expense is the appeal, creating a visible signal of wealth and taste that depends entirely on maintaining pricing inaccessible to average consumers. Premium bottled water represents prestige pricing in its purest form, where chemically identical products command vastly different prices based purely on branding and packaging. Water sourced from municipal supplies, bottled in luxury packaging, and marketed with sophistication narratives, sells for 5 to 10 times the price of functionally equivalent water. The premium price creates the perception that this water is somehow superior, healthier, or more refined, when objective analysis reveals no meaningful difference beyond the bottle design and marketing story. Technology products use prestige pricing to position as premium alternatives, where minor feature differences justify dramatic price premiums. A laptop with specifications marginally better than competitors sells for twice the price. The premium positions the brand as luxury technology for discerning users who want the best, even when performance differences are negligible. In real-world use, restaurants employ prestige pricing through high markup items that signal sophistication. A steak that costs the restaurant $12 sells for $65. The high price is not just profit margin, it is positioning that attracts customers seeking upscale dining experiences, where the cost itself becomes part of the luxury experience, justifying the evening out as special or celebratory. Beauty and skincare products exploit prestige pricing in categories where results are subjective and difficult to attribute to specific products. A face cream with ingredients costing $3 per unit sells for $120 based on luxury packaging, scientific sounding descriptions, and premium positioning that suggests this product works better than drugstore alternatives, even when dermatological evidence shows comparable efficacy across price points. Question automatic associations between price and quality, particularly in categories where you lack expertise. Research production costs and markup standards in product categories to understand when high prices reflect genuine value versus positioning strategy. Seek blind comparison tests and objective product reviews that evaluate performance independent of price. Consider whether you're purchasing product benefits or status signaling. If the primary value is showing others you can afford expensive items, recognize that as a choice rather than quality assessment. Test your own price quality assumptions by trying lower-priced alternatives in categories where you typically buy. Premium discovering whether perceived differences justify price premiums. High prices create value perception, regardless of underlying quality. When you recognize price as a marketing tool rather than a quality metric, you can evaluate products based on actual performance rather than the circular logic where expensive seems better because it costs more and costs more because it seems better. Breaking this association requires conscious effort to separate price from quality, allowing rational assessment of whether premium positioning reflects genuine superiority or simply exploits the assumption that paying more guarantees getting more. Bundling psychology is a psychological manipulation technique where businesses package multiple products or services together, obscuring individual item values and making price comparison impossible, while creating the perception of deal value that encourages higher total spending than customers originally intended. By presenting items as unified packages rather than separate purchases, companies prevent rational cost-benefit analysis of each component, forcing customers to accept or reject entire bundles based on overall impression rather than careful evaluation of whether they need want or would pay reasonable prices for the individual elements. When products are sold individually, customers can evaluate each item separately, comparing prices across retailers, assessing whether features justify costs, and deciding which items meet genuine needs. Bundling disrupts this evaluation process by presenting a take-it-or-leave-it package, where the only choice is purchasing everything or nothing. The inability to decline unwanted items while accepting desired ones means customers frequently overpay for bundles that include products they never intended to buy, subsidizing manufacturers through purchases driven by desire for one or two bundle components, while being forced to accept the rest. Fast food value meals exemplify bundling psychology, where restaurants combine sandwich drink and side into packages priced below. The sum of individual items a burger purchased separately costs $5, fries cost $3, and a drink costs $2, creating a total of $10. If bought individually, the value meal offers all three for $8, creating apparent savings of $2. This seems like a deal until customers realize they did not want the drink or wanted a smaller portion than the bundle provides. The $2 savings becomes irrelevant when the bundle forces purchase of unwanted items that create waste or excess consumption. The restaurant benefits because most customers would have purchased only the burger, but the bundle structure captures additional revenue through forced inclusion of high-margin sides and drinks. Technology products use bundling to move accessories and add-ons that customers would reject if priced separately. A laptop bundle includes the computer plus a carrying case wireless mouse, external hard drive, and software suite. The bundle price seems reasonable compared to buying the laptop alone with imagined separate accessory prices, but the accessories may be low-quality items the customer does not need and would never purchase individually. The manufacturer moves inventory that would not sell on its own merit by hiding it within bundles, where the primary product is the draw cable, and telecommunications companies pioneered aggressive bundling where television, internet, and phone service combine into packages that obscure individual service costs. A customer wanting only internet discovers that the bundle, including television and phone, costs only $15 more than internet alone. This apparent efficiency hides the fact that the standalone internet is deliberately overpriced to make bundles seem attractive, forcing customers who want one service to pay for three, while making it impossible to determine whether they are receiving fair value for any individual service. The bundle pricing prevents comparison shopping because no competitor offers identical bundle composition, making true cost evaluation impossible. Software suites bundle multiple programs where customers need one or two applications, but must purchase the entire package. A creative professional wants video editing software, but can only purchase it as part of a suite, including photo editing, audio production, and graphic design tools they will never use. The bundled price is lower than buying the video editor separately would be if it were available individually, but the company intentionally withholds standalone options, forcing customers into bundles that generate more revenue. Streaming services bundle content where subscribers pay for entire catalogues to access the few shows or movies they actually want to watch. A viewer interested in one exclusive series must subscribe to the entire platform, subsidizing content they will never consume. The bundle obscures cost per viewing, making it impossible to evaluate whether paying for a full month to watch one show represents good value. Identify which bundle components you actually need and would purchase separately. Research individual item prices when available to determine whether bundles offer genuine savings or simply obscure inflated pricing. Refuse bundles when they include multiple unwanted items, even if the perceived per-item cost is lower than buying needed items separately. Calculate cost per wanted item by dividing bundle price by number of products you actually intend to use, ignoring unwanted extras that inflate perceived value. Seek retailers offering unbundled options, even if initial prices seem higher, as paying only for needed items typically costs less than bundles padded with unwanted additions. Bundling transforms purchase decisions from evaluating individual products to accepting or rejecting predetermined packages designed to maximize company revenue rather than customer value. When businesses package products together, they reveal that forcing customers to overpay for unwanted items is more profitable than competing on individual product merit by insisting on unbundled options and walking away from forced packages. You pressure markets toward transparent pricing, where every purchase represents conscious choice, rather than coerced acceptance of items included solely to inflate transaction values. Retargeting psychology is a psychological manipulation tactic where companies track browsing behavior and display advertisements for previously viewed products across multiple websites and platforms, creating the illusion of product popularity, universal recommendation, and personal relevance that manufactures urgency and inevitability around purchase decisions. A customer browses for running shoes on one website, then discovers ads for those exact shoes appearing on news sites, social media feeds, mobile apps, and seemingly unrelated web pages, creating the impression that the product is following them everywhere. This omnipresence is not coincidence or indication of product quality, but rather sophisticated advertising technology that tracks individual browsing activity and purchases ad placements across the internet to create persistent exposure designed to convert browsing into buying. The psychological power of retargeting lies in multiple reinforcing mechanisms. Mere exposure effect demonstrates that repeated exposure to stimuli increases positive feelings and familiarity when the same product appears across different contexts. The brain interprets this repetition as social proof, suggesting that if this product is everywhere, it must be popular, valuable, or worth purchasing. The tracking technology creates artificial ubiquity that mimics organic popularity, social validation, and personal recommendation. Even though the ads appear only to the individual being tracked, availability heuristic makes frequently encountered information seem more important or relevant. When running shoes appear repeatedly across platforms, the brain unconsciously elevates their perceived significance, making them seem like an urgent purchase consideration rather than one of thousands of possible shoe options. The strategic repetition hijacks mental shortcuts that evolved to identify genuinely important information, applying those heuristics to deliberately manufactured frequency e-commerce platforms. Deploy retargeting immediately after product views, where browsing a single item triggers ad campaigns that follow users across the internet for days or weeks. A customer looking at cameras on an electronic site closes their browser and begins reading news, only to see the exact camera model they viewed displayed in banner ads. Within the article, they switch to social media, and the camera appears in their feed. They check email, and the camera is featured in promotional messages. They use a mobile app, and the camera ad loads between content. The coordinated cross-platform presence creates psychological pressure through sheer repetition, making the camera feel like an inevitable purchase that the universe is nudging them toward, when in reality, sophisticated tracking pixels and advertising networks are executing programmed retargeting campaigns based purely on that single browsing session. Abandoned cart retargeting represents the most aggressive application, where adding items to shopping carts without completing purchase triggers intensive ad campaigns combined with email pressure. A customer adds items to cart intending to complete the purchase later, or simply using the cart as a wish list for future consideration. Within hours, they receive emails reminding them about abandoned items, often including time-limited discount codes to create urgency, simultaneously retargeting ads. Displaying the exact cart contents appear across every website they visit. The coordinated assault creates artificial urgency around items they may have only been casually browsing, transforming tentative interest into pressure to complete the purchase before the discount expires or the items sell out. Threats that may be entirely fabricated to manufacture urgency. Travel booking sites use retargeting to display fluctuating prices and availability warnings for previously searched destinations. A user researches flights to a vacation destination without booking. The following days, they see ads for those exact flights, with messages stating prices increased since you last searched, or only 3 seats left at this price. Even when price changes are normal, market fluctuations, or the scarcity is artificial. The retargeting creates the impression that delay means losing the opportunity, manufacturing urgency, where none existed. Social media platforms enable retargeting through custom audiences, where businesses upload customer data or track website visitors, then serve ads specifically to those individuals. A user browses a brand website without purchasing, then sees that brand's ads in their social feed repeatedly. Over the following weeks, the ads may feature the exact products they viewed or similar items, creating the impression that the brand is speaking directly to them when they are simply part of a retargeted segment receiving automated campaigns. Clear browser cookies regularly to disrupt tracking that enables retargeting, preventing advertisers from building profiles of your browsing behavior. Use privacy-focused browsers and browser extensions that block tracking pixels and advertising cookies, preventing retargeting systems from following your activity. Across sites, recognize that product advertisements appearing everywhere do not indicate popularity or quality, but rather that you have been placed in a retargeting campaign. Log out of social media platforms and use private browsing when researching purchases to prevent browsing activity from feeding into advertising profiles. Understand that urgency messages in retargeting ads, like price increases or limited availability, are often fabricated to manufacture pressure where none exists. Retargeting creates artificial omnipresence that mimics social proof and universal recommendation through technological surveillance rather than genuine product quality or popularity. The running shoes appearing everywhere are not actually everywhere. They are specifically following you because tracking technology identified you as a potential customer and purchased ad placements across your internet experience. Recognizing this distinction allows you to evaluate products based on actual merit rather than manufactured ubiquity, designed to exploit psychological shortcuts that interpret frequency as importance and repetition as validation. Email manipulation tactics are psychological manipulation techniques where companies exploit subject line psychology, send time optimization, and strategic messaging patterns to maximize open rates, click-through behavior, and purchase conversions, transforming email marketing from informational communication into engineered psychological triggers designed to bypass rational filtering and compel engagement through carefully tested language patterns, timing strategies, and personalization illusions that create false intimacy and manufactured urgency. Subject lines function as psychological gatekeepers, determining whether emails are opened or ignored. Marketers understand that inbox competition is intense, with average users receiving dozens to hundreds of emails daily, making subject line optimization critical to campaign success. This optimization happens through systematic A/B testing, where thousands of subject line variations are tested against audience segments to identify which psychological triggers generate highest open rates. The winning formulas are not those that best describe email content, but rather those that most effectively exploit curiosity gaps, fear of missing out, or personalization illusions, regardless of whether the email delivers value, matching the subject line. Promise, curiosity gap. Subject lines deliberately withhold information, creating psychological tension that can only be resolved by opening the email. A retailer sends subject lines like, "You will not believe what just arrived," or "We need to tell you something important about your account." These phrases provide zero actual information, instead manufacturing intrigue through vague promises. The curiosity gap exploits the brain's discomfort, with unresolved questions making the act of not opening the email feel like leaving a question unanswered, even when the email contents are routine promotional messages or minor account updates that do not warrant urgent attention. Urgency language in subject lines creates artificial time pressure to drive immediate opens and actions. Phrases like "last chance expires tonight," "only hours left," or "final reminder" appear with high frequency. Despite most offers being recurring or renewable, the urgency is manufactured to exploit loss, aversion making recipients fear missing opportunities that are not actually scarce or time-limited. Retailers coordinate urgency subject lines with countdown timers in email bodies, creating layered pressure that makes routine promotional messages feel like expiring opportunities. Personalization in subject lines ranges from simple name insertion to sophisticated behavioral targeting. An email reading, "Hey, Sarah, we picked these just for you," creates the illusion of personal attention and curation, when in reality, thousands of recipients received identical emails, with their names automatically inserted through merge tags. More sophisticated personalization references, browsing history, abandoned carts or past purchases, creating emails that feel individually crafted when they are actually automated responses triggered by tracked behavior. The personalization manufactures intimacy that does not exist, making marketing feel like personal communication. Send time optimization exploits data about when specific user segments are most likely to check email and take action. Marketers analyze historical open and click patterns to identify optimal sending windows for different audience segments. Early morning emails arrive before work when recipients process personal messages. Evening emails arrive during relaxation periods, when purchase consideration is highest. Weekend timing targets leisure browsing sessions. The optimization means emails arrive precisely when recipients are most psychologically vulnerable to marketing messages, most likely to have discretionary time for browsing, and most susceptible to impulse purchase behavior. Mobile optimization in email design exploits the reality that most email opens happen on phones, where smaller screens, limited attention, and touch interfaces create different engagement patterns than desktop. Viewing emails are designed with single column layouts, prominent call to action buttons, and minimal text optimized for quick scanning and immediate clicking rather than careful reading. The mobile optimization prioritizes conversion over information, making it easier to click through than to read and evaluate whether the offer has genuine value. Subject line length manipulation uses character limits strategically, where the most important psychological trigger appears in the visible preview, while qualifications or disclaimers are truncated. A subject line reading 50% off. Everything appears compelling until the truncated portion reveals in the clearance section only, but most recipients see only the 50% off portion in their inbox preview, making decisions based on incomplete information that overstates the offer. Preview text manipulation extends subject line strategy into the first lines of email, body text that appear in inbox previews. Marketers craft these opening words as carefully as subject lines, ensuring that the preview continues. Psychological triggers started in the subject rather than providing useful information about email contents. The coordination between subject and preview creates a two-stage psychological hook designed to maximize opens, disable email. Preview panes when possible, forcing yourself to consciously decide which emails to open rather than being influenced by psychological triggers. in preview text unsubscribe aggressively from promotional emails, reducing inbox volume and eliminating exposure to manipulative subject lines, create email filters that sort marketing messages into separate folders checked only during designated times when you have mental capacity to evaluate offers critically rather than reactively ignore urgency language in subject lines, recognizing that most expiring offers are either recurring promotions or artificial deadlines created purely for pressure-treat personalized subject lines. With skepticism, understanding that name insertion and behavioral references are automated rather than indicators of genuine personal attention schedule, specific email checking times rather than constantly monitoring your inbox, reducing opportunities for send time optimization to catch you in vulnerable decision-making moments. Email marketing succeeds through systematic exploitation of psychological vulnerabilities identified through mass testing and behavioral tracking. When companies invest more in engineering subject lines than in product quality or customer service, they reveal that manipulation is more profitable than value creation. Recognizing email as a psychological battlefield rather than useful communication channel allows you to engage on your terms, checking when convenient, ignoring urgency theatre, and evaluating offers based on genuine need rather than manufactured pressure delivered precisely when algorithms determine you are most likely to comply. Push notification psychology is a psychological manipulation tactic where companies exploit interruption addiction and notification compulsion to drive repeated app engagement and purchasing behavior by engineering alerts that hijack attention, create artificial urgency, and exploit fear of missing out these notifications, transform voluntary app usage into involuntary response patterns where users compulsively check devices, not because they want information, but because they have been conditioned to respond to digital interruptions as though they represent urgent matters requiring immediate attention. Notification systems exploit fundamental aspects of human psychology related to uncertainty, variable rewards, and social connection. The brain evolved to prioritize unexpected information because in ancestral environments, unexpected stimuli often signaled threats or opportunities requiring immediate response. Modern notification systems weaponize this evolutionary programming by delivering unpredictable alerts that trigger the same neural pathways as genuine urgent information, even when the notification content is trivial, promotional, or entirely manufactured to drive engagement. The uncertainty about what each notification contains creates compulsive checking behavior, as the brain cannot distinguish between genuinely important alerts and commercial manipulation dressed as urgent communication. Shopping apps deploy push notifications with strategic timing and urgency language designed to interrupt whatever users are doing and redirect attention toward purchasing. A retail app sends notifications stating flash sale, starting now, only 2 hours left, or item in your cart is almost sold out. These alerts arrive during evening hours when users are relaxing and most susceptible to impulse purchases, or during commute times, when boredom makes shopping distraction appealing. The urgency language is almost always artificial, with sales that repeat regularly or stock warnings that bear no relationship to actual inventory levels. But the notification format makes everything feel time-sensitive and personally relevant because it appeared as an interruption on a device users check constantly throughout the day. Social media platforms engineer notifications around variable reward schedules, where alerts about likes, comments, and mentions arrive unpredictably, creating slot machine. Like compulsion to check repeatedly, a user receives a notification that someone liked their post, which triggers dopamine release and satisfaction. They check frequently, hoping for more notifications, creating habitual checking behavior that persists even when no new notifications arrive. The platforms deliberately time and batch notifications to maximize engagement spacing them to maintain checking habits while preventing satisfaction that might reduce compulsion. They withhold some notifications, creating artificial scarcity that makes each alert feel more valuable. Gaming apps use push notifications to enforce engagement schedules and prevent player abandonment. A game sends alerts stating your energy is full time to play or you are about to lose your daily streak. These manufactured urgencies create obligation, where leisure activity becomes something players feel they must do to avoid losing progress or missing opportunities. The notifications transform optional entertainment into commitment that drives daily engagement, regardless of whether users actually want to play. News apps exploit push notifications through breaking news alerts that train users to treat all notifications as urgent, important information requiring immediate attention. Once this urgency response is established for actual breaking news, the apps expand notification categories to include non-urgent stories, opinion pieces, and eventually promotional content, all delivered with the same urgent notification style that users have been conditioned to treat as requiring immediate attention. Delivery and service apps send excessive notifications throughout routine transactions where a single food order might generate 7 to 10 notifications order received, preparing out for delivery, nearby delivered, and feedback request, creating notification fatigue, while training users to compulsively check devices for updates. Disable push notifications for all apps except those requiring genuine, time-sensitive alerts. Like messages from specific contacts, configure remaining notifications to deliver summary batches at scheduled times rather than immediate interruptions, preventing constant disruption. Schedule specific times to check apps rather than responding to every notification, allowing you to engage on your terms. Review notification settings regularly, as apps often re-enable notifications through updates or add new notification categories that default to enabled recognize the urgent language in notifications is almost always artificial, with most alerts representing manufactured rather than genuine urgency. When you allow every app to interrupt your attention whenever it chooses to drive engagement, you surrender control over your own focus and decision-making to algorithms optimized for company profit rather than user well-being. Notification systems are not designed to serve your information needs. They are designed to create compulsive checking behaviors that maximize the time and money you invest in platforms, regardless of whether that engagement serves any purpose beyond corporate revenue. The power to disable notifications is the power to reclaim attention from systems engineered to steal it through exploitation of evolutionary vulnerabilities that cannot distinguish between genuinely urgent information and commercial manipulation delivered through digital interruption. Gamification exploitation is a psychological manipulation technique where companies implement points badges, leaderboards, and streak systems to create addictive engagement patterns that transform voluntary product use into compulsive, habitual behavior, driven by manufactured achievement systems rather than genuine value or enjoyment. These game mechanics exploit the same psychological vulnerabilities that make gambling addictive, applying variable reward schedules, progress tracking, and social competition to mundane activities, creating artificial motivation that serves corporate engagement metrics while consuming user time, attention, and often money in pursuit of meaningless digital accomplishments. Game designers understand that external reward systems can override intrinsic motivation, creating situations where people continue behaviors, not because they find them valuable or enjoyable, but because the reward structure compels continued participation. This exploitation of achievement psychology transforms products from tools serving user needs into engagement traps where the goal becomes maintaining streaks, earning badges, or climbing leaderboards, rather than accomplishing anything meaningful in the physical world. The gamification creates closed-loop systems where success is measured entirely by metrics the company defines and controls, ensuring that users remain engaged with the platform, regardless of whether that engagement serves their actual interests. Goals or well-being, fitness and habit tracking apps deploy gamification through daily streak counters that create artificial obligation to maintain unbroken chains of activity. A meditation app celebrates consecutive days of practice, displaying the streak number prominently and sending notifications warning that today is the last day to maintain your streak. This manufactured pressure transforms what should be flexible wellness practice into rigid commitment, where the streak itself becomes more important than the underlying activity users meditate. Not because they want to, but because breaking the streak feels like failure, even when rest or schedule flexibility would serve their actual well-being better. The streak mechanic creates compulsive daily engagement, regardless of whether each session provides value. Language learning platforms use point systems and competitive leaderboards where users earn experience points for completing lessons and compete against other learners. For top rankings, the gamification transforms education into competition, creating motivation through comparison and achievement rather than intrinsic interest in learning. Users complete lessons to earn points and maintain leaderboard positions, not necessarily because they are retaining language skills or enjoying the learning process. The external motivation can actually undermine genuine learning by encouraging rapid, superficial completion of exercises rather than deep engagement with material. Social media platforms gamify engagement through like counts, follower numbers, and engagement metrics that function as social currency. Users post content not primarily to share ideas or connect with others, but to earn likes and followers that serve as public achievement scores. The gamification creates addictive feedback loops, where users compulsively check metrics, refresh feeds, and modify behavior to maximize engagement numbers that have no real-world value beyond the artificial importance the platform assigns them. E-commerce platforms implement tiered membership systems, where purchase volume unlocks status levels and benefits. A customer makes purchases to reach platinum status or maintain VIP tier, creating artificial motivation to spend based on proximity to the next achievement level rather than actual need for products. The tiered systems exploit progress completion bias, making customers feel that stopping just before reaching the next tier means wasting previous purchases toward that goal. Credit card companies gamify spending through rewards points and cashback percentages that frame spending as earning, creating the illusion that purchases generate value through points accumulated. The gamification encourages increased spending to maximize points, even when the rewards provide minimal actual value compared to money spent pursuing them. Productivity apps use completion, animations, badges, and progress bars that provide dopamine hits for finishing tasks, creating external reward systems for activities that should be internally motivated. Checking items off lists becomes more satisfying than actually accomplishing meaningful work. The gamification can lead to prioritizing easy, completable tasks over important, difficult ones because the reward system treats all completions equally. Recognize when you're continuing behaviors to maintain arbitrary metrics, rather than because the behavior serves genuine goals. Disable streak counters, notifications, and leaderboards when possible, removing the external pressure systems that override intrinsic motivation. Evaluate whether gamified activities provide actual value, independent of the points, badges, or streaks they generate. Ask yourself whether you would continue the behavior if all the game mechanics disappeared tomorrow. If the answer is no, you are being manipulated through artificial achievement systems. Take breaks from gamified platforms, deliberately breaking streaks to break the psychological hold. These mechanics resist spending or engagement decisions driven by proximity to next tier or achievement level. Recognizing these as manufactured motivations designed to override rational choice. Gamification transforms products from tools into psychological traps, where engagement becomes its own justification, regardless of whether that engagement produces value, serves goals, or improves life. When companies invest in engineering achievement systems rather than actual product utility, they reveal that manipulating behavior through exploited psychology is more profitable than delivering genuine value. Understanding this allows you to reclaim agency over your own time and attention, ensuring that activities serve your genuine interests rather than corporate engagement metrics dressed as personal achievement. Loyalty program manipulation is a psychological manipulation technique where businesses create tiered rewards, systems, point accumulation structures, and exclusive membership levels that exploit sunk cost buyer status, seeking behavior, and loss aversion to maintain customer relationships based on artificial commitment rather than genuine product quality or competitive pricing. By engineering programs where accumulated points represent value that exists only within the company ecosystem, and where higher membership tiers require sustained spending to maintain, these systems trap customers into continued patronage even when competitors offer better products or prices. These programs succeed by transforming spending into a form of investment, where every purchase generates points or progress towards status levels that make switching to competitors feel like abandoning accrued value. A customer who has accumulated 10,000 points with an airline faces switching costs, not just in learning a new program, but in writing off the accumulated points that represent past purchases. The psychological investment becomes a barrier, preventing rational evaluation of whether this airline actually offers the best service or pricing for current needs. The loyalty program creates artificial stickiness that has nothing to do with customer satisfaction and everything to do with making departure feel like financial loss. Airlines pioneered sophisticated loyalty manipulation through frequent flyer programs with complex tier systems, where elite status provides benefits that require substantial annual spending to maintain. A passenger reaches gold status after flying 50,000 miles, enjoying priority boarding lounge access and upgrade eligibility. But maintaining that status requires hitting the 50,000-mile threshold every calendar year, creating ongoing pressure to choose this airline even when competitors offer better routes or prices. The annual reset transforms status from achievement into obligation, where customers feel they must continue spending to avoid losing benefits. They have grown accustomed to retail loyalty programs, deploy point systems where purchases accumulate rewards that can only be redeemed within the same retailer ecosystem. A grocery store offers 1 point per dollar spent with 500 points, earning $5 in store credit. The redemption structure means points have value only if the customer continues shopping. They're creating artificial motivation to return rather than shopping wherever offers best combination of price, quality, and convenience. The points represent pseudo-currency that traps value within a closed system. Coffee shops use stamp cards and app-based reward programs, where every purchase brings customers closer to a free item. The progress toward completion creates psychological pressure to return even when competitors offer superior products or better prices. Because abandoning a half-completed stamp card feels like wasting previous purchases toward that reward credit card structure, loyalty programs through cashback tiers and bonus categories, where higher spending unlocks better rewards percentages. A card offers 1% cashback on most purchases, but 2% on purchases exceeding $3,000 monthly and 3% beyond $5,000. The tiered structure incentivizes increased spending to reach higher reward levels, making customers spend more to maximize benefits when the additional spending often exceeds. The incremental rewards earned hotel chains create status tiers with substantial benefit differences, where mid-tier members receive modest perks while top-tier members enjoy room upgrades, late checkout, and bonus points. The gap between tiers creates aspiration to spend more to reach the next level and fear of dropping back down after reaching elevated status. Calculate whether loyalty rewards actually provide value by dividing total annual rewards by total annual spending to determine true percentage return, often revealing that rewards are less valuable than simply shopping wherever offers best base prices. Ignore sunk cost of accumulated points when evaluating current purchases, asking whether this transaction makes sense. Independent of existing point balances, recognize that status tier benefits often require spending levels that exceed what any rational rewards calculation would justify switch to competitors when they offer better value regardless of loyalty program ties. Understanding that points and status are designed specifically to prevent this rational decision-making, consolidate loyalty program participation to one or two essential programs rather than spreading purchases across multiple retailers to maintain minimal point balances everywhere that provide insufficient value to justify limited choice. Loyalty programs persist because they successfully convert spending into artificial investment that traps customers through manufactured commitment rather than earned through superior products or service. When companies invest more in engineering psychological lock-in through reward structures than in actual quality or pricing improvements, they reveal that manipulation is more profitable than competition on merit. By treating loyalty points as the worthless company script they are, rather than as genuine value, you regain freedom to make purchasing decisions based on current best option rather than past spending that is gone regardless of where you shop next. Limited edition tactics are a psychological manipulation technique where companies create artificial scarcity through exclusive releases, numbered items, or time-restricted availability to manufacture demand for products that could be produced in unlimited quantities. The scarcity is not logistical or resource-based, but rather strategic marketing designed to exploit the human tendency to value rare items more highly than abundant ones and to trigger fear of missing out that drives impulsive purchasing behavior at inflated prices. When products are genuinely scarce due to limited raw materials, difficult production processes, or naturally constrained supply, high prices and intense demand reflect actual market conditions. Limited edition marketing inverts this relationship by first deciding to create artificial scarcity, then using that manufactured limitation to justify premium pricing and generate urgency around items that have no inherent rarity. The company could produce unlimited quantities but deliberately restricts supply because scarcity creates psychological value that exceeds what the product could command in an unrestricted market. Sneaker brands deploy limited edition tactics through numbered releases and exclusive collaborations where shoes that cost $40 to manufacture sell for $300 or more at retail and thousands on resale markets because only 5,000 pairs exist globally. A customer wanting specific sneakers must enter online raffles, wait in physical lines for hours, or pay resale markups of 500%. Not because the shoes are objectively superior or difficult to produce, but because the brand intentionally manufactured scarcity to create collector market dynamics, where possession becomes status symbol rather than functional footwear. Fashion designers use limited edition tactics through capsule collections and seasonal exclusives, where garments are produced in quantities deliberately insufficient to meet demand, creating waitlists, resale markets, and brand mystique built entirely on manufactured unavailability. A luxury brand announces a limited handbag release of 100 units worldwide. The scarcity creates media coverage, social media buzz, and intense competition among buyers willing to pay premium prices for items that differ only marginally from regularly available products. The limited quantity is marketing strategy, not production constraint. Technology companies exploit limited edition tactics through special editions and exclusive colorways, where functionally identical products command price premiums and generate urgency through artificial restriction. A gaming console manufacturer releases a limited edition with unique cosmetic design in quantities far below demand, creating secondary markets where the limited edition sells for double retail price. Despite offering no performance advantages over standard models, collectibles, and trading cards systematically employ limited edition tactics through numbered prints, variant covers, and chase items, where artificial rarity drives speculative markets. A comic book publisher releases standard covers alongside limited variant covers with print runs of 1,000 copies. The variant becomes collector item, trading at 10 to 50 times the cover price. Despite containing identical story content, the manufactured scarcity creates artificial value based purely on restriction. Restaurants and food brands use limited edition tactics through seasonal menu items and time-restricted offerings that create urgency around products that could be offered year-round. A fast food chain releases a limited-time sandwich, generating media attention and foot traffic, driven by fear that this specific combination of ingredients will become unavailable even though all components remain in inventory and could be prepared indefinitely. Resist urgency created by limited edition marketing by recognizing that scarcity is almost always manufactured rather than inherent to the product. Wait before purchasing limited items to determine whether you genuinely want the product or simply want to possess something rare. Research whether functional equivalents exist without artificial scarcity. Restrictions evaluate whether premium pricing reflects actual product superiority or simply scarcity. Marketing calculate resale values for items you're considering purchasing as investments, recognizing that most limited editions depreciate rather than appreciate once initial scarcity-driven demand subsides. Limited edition tactics reveal that companies understand psychological value exceeds functional value when scarcity is involved by deliberately restricting supply. They create markets where customers compete for access rather than companies competing on quality or price. The limitation is not accident or constraint, but deliberate strategy to extract maximum revenue through manufactured rarity that exists only because the company chooses to maintain it. Recognizing this distinction allows you to evaluate products based on utility and fair pricing rather than participating in artificial scarcity. Economics designed to convert availability into value regardless of whether underlying products justify premium positioning. Seasonal urgency is a psychological manipulation tactic where retailers exploit holidays, cultural events, and calendar transitions to create artificial deadlines and pressure around purchases that have no genuine time sensitivity by framing routine products as seasonally appropriate, necessary, or expiring businesses. Manufacture urgency that transforms year-round available items into must-buy-now opportunities where delaying purchase until after the holiday event or season change feels like missing a critical window, even though identical or similar products remain available indefinitely. Holiday shopping periods demonstrate how companies coordinate to create collective urgency around dates that have no inherent commercial significance. Retailers begin holiday marketing months in advance, establishing expectations that certain purchases must be completed by specific dates, even when the products serve no holiday-specific function. Electronics, clothing, and household goods are marketed as holiday essentials, with messaging suggesting that purchasing these items at other times of year is somehow inappropriate or that holiday pricing represents unique value, when in reality, many products see better discounts during off-peak clearance periods. The holiday becomes a deadline that exists only because retailers collectively agreed to treat it as one Black Friday and Cyber Monday represent pure manufactured urgency, where retailers create artificial shopping events that pressure consumers into believing they must purchase during narrow windows to access best pricing. These designated shopping days feature genuine deals on some items, but primarily function as urgency generators, where the limited timeframe drives purchases of products at prices equal to or higher than those available during other parts of the year. The shopping event creates FOMO that compels purchases based on fear of missing sales rather than actual need for products. Back-to-school marketing exploits seasonal transitions by framing routine supplies and clothing as urgent seasonal necessities that must be purchased within specific windows. A student needs notebooks, pens, and clothes throughout the year, but retailers concentrate messaging and promotions around narrow back-to-school periods, creating artificial urgency where purchasing these items at any other time feels like missing proper timing. The seasonal framing is marketing, not logistics. Valentine's Day demonstrates how retailers create urgency around arbitrary dates by establishing expectations that specific product categories become mandatory purchases within narrow timeframes. Flowers, jewelry, and dining reservations are marketed as though the date itself creates unique obligations that cannot be fulfilled at any other time, transforming optional gift-giving into socially required purchases that must occur during a 2-week window when prices are inflated and availability is restricted. New Year promotions exploit calendar psychology, where arbitrary date boundaries create false fresh start opportunities. Fitness memberships, organizing products, and self-improvement services are marketed as New Year essentials, even though starting these activities in February or July is equally effective. The calendar transition creates artificial urgency, where delaying means missing the optimal moment to begin changes that could begin any day. Travel booking urgency appears around holiday periods, where airlines and hotels use seasonal demand to justify dynamic pricing that creates apparent urgency around booking. Windows, travel providers display messages about pricing, increasing as holidays approach, making consumers book further in advance at higher prices than might be available. Closer to dates, the seasonal urgency overrides normal price shopping behavior. Shop off season when possible, recognizing that most products are available year-round without genuine timing requirements. Ignore artificial shopping holidays by tracking prices throughout the year to verify whether promoted sales represent genuine value or manufactured urgency. Resist guilt-based seasonal marketing that suggests failing to purchase gifts or products by specific dates represents social failure. Recognize that seasonal framing is marketing strategy, not product necessity. Extend gift-giving or celebration to dates outside commercial pressure windows when products are more available and reasonably priced. Seasonal urgency succeeds by transforming calendar dates into psychological deadlines that override rational purchase timing when retailers coordinate to treat arbitrary dates as shopping imperatives. They create urgency unrelated to product value or consumer need. Understanding that seasons exist in nature but shopping seasons are manufactured allows you to purchase based on actual need and favorable pricing, rather than responding to collective commercial pressure that exists only because companies profit from concentrated spending during artificially designated periods. Personalization manipulation is a psychological manipulation technique where companies use tracked behavioral data, browsing history, and demographic information to create the illusion of personal attention and individually tailored experiences, when in reality they are delivering automated mass-market campaigns customized only to exploit individual vulnerabilities. More effectively, this tactic transforms data surveillance into manufactured intimacy, where algorithm-driven product recommendations and dynamically generated content make customers feel uniquely understood when they are actually being sorted into behavioral categories designed to maximize conversion rates. regardless of whether recommendations serve genuine customer interests. The effectiveness of personalization manipulation stems from the human desire to feel understood and valued. When a website displays content that appears specifically chosen for you, or an email addresses you by name and references your recent activity, it creates the impression that a company is paying individual attention to your needs, building a relationship where they understand your preferences and want to help you find exactly what you want. This perception is entirely false. Personalization at scale is algorithmic pattern matching that identifies which manipulative strategies work best on people who share your behavioral profile. The system does not care about you as an individual. It cares about you as a data point belonging to a profitable segment that responds predictably to specific triggers. E-commerce platforms deploy personalization manipulation through recommendation engines that claim to suggest products based on your unique preferences and browsing history. A customer viewing cameras receives recommendations for camera bags, memory cards, and tripods presented, as because you viewed this camera, you might like these accessories. The recommendations appear helpful, but are actually automated cross-sell strategies designed to increase basket size by suggesting high-margin accessories that customers might not independently consider. The personalization is not about understanding needs, but about identifying which additional products can be attached to initial interest. Email marketing uses personalization beyond simple name insertion to reference specific browsing behavior, abandoned carts and past purchases, creating messages that feel like personal follow-ups. When they are automated, triggers, a customer browses winter coats without purchasing, then receives an email. Reading, "Hi Sarah, we noticed you were looking at winter coats. Are you still interested in staying warm this season?" With a picture of the exact coat viewed, the message creates the illusion that someone at the company noticed the browsing session and personally reached out, when in reality, a tracking pixel triggered an automated email sent to thousands of customers who exhibited similar browsing patterns. Streaming and content platforms use personalization to create curated experiences that feel individually tailored but actually reflect algorithmic predictions about what will maximize engagement time. A viewer finishes one show and immediately receives recommendations presented, as because you watched this, we think you will love. The suggestions are not based on understanding the viewer's taste, but on statistical correlations between viewing patterns across millions of users optimized to suggest content that historically keeps people watching longest, regardless of satisfaction. Targeted advertising employs personalization manipulation by serving ads that reference recent searches or browsing, creating the unsettling impression that advertisements are following you across the internet. A customer researches vacation destinations, then sees ads for those exact locations across unrelated websites, with messaging like "ready to book your trip to Hawaii." The personalization uses surveillance to create relevance that feels invasive, yet also strangely attentive, as though companies are trying to help complete your purchase when they are actually monetizing your data to serve ads most likely to generate clicks. Dynamic pricing algorithms personalize in ways that disadvantage customers by charging different prices based on browsing history, location, and perceived willingness to pay. A customer shopping from an affluent zip code or using premium devices sees higher prices than someone shopping from different circumstances. The personalization optimizes for extracting maximum revenue from each customer segment rather than offering fair, consistent pricing. Limit data collection by using privacy-focused browsers, clearing cookies regularly, and opting out of tracking when possible. Disable personalized recommendations in platform settings, preferring generic interfaces that do not adapt based on your behavior. Recognize that personalized content is optimized for platform goals. not your interests, evaluate whether recommendations actually serve your needs or simply reflect what algorithms predict will maximize your engagement and spending. Treat personalized messaging with same skepticism as generic advertising, understanding that customization is automated. Behavioral targeting, not genuine personal attention. Personalization manipulation succeeds by disguising surveillance as service and data exploitation as customer care. When companies invest more in tracking and profiling you than in actual product quality, they reveal that understanding your vulnerabilities is more profitable than serving your genuine needs. Recognizing that personalized experiences are algorithmically generated. Manipulation targeted at behavioral patterns allows you to engage with these systems skeptically, maintaining awareness that what feels like individual attention is actually mass market manipulation customized to exploit you more efficiently than one-size-fits-all approaches ever could. Color psychology exploitation is a psychological manipulation tactic where businesses strategically deploy specific colors in branding, packaging interfaces, and retail environments to trigger unconscious emotional responses and guide behavior toward desired actions. These color choices are not aesthetic decisions but rather calculated applications of research, demonstrating that colors influence mood perception and decision-making in predictable ways, allowing companies to manipulate emotional states, purchasing impulses, and trust levels without customers recognizing that their responses are being engineered through carefully selected visual stimuli. Colors bypass conscious reasoning to trigger immediate emotional and physiological responses that evolved long before modern commerce. Red increases heart rate and creates sense of urgency because in nature it signals danger. Ripe fruit or blood. Green suggests safety, growth, and environmental responsibility because it represents vegetation and natural abundance. Blue evokes trust, calm, and security because it mirrors sky and water. Orange generates excitement and appetite stimulation, while yellow attracts attention and suggests optimism. These color associations are so deeply embedded in human psychology that they operate automatically beneath conscious awareness, making color exploitation particularly effective because targets never realize their emotional responses, and behavioral inclinations are being deliberately triggered through visual manipulation. Retail environments deploy color psychology through strategic design choices that influence shopping behavior and spending levels. Discount retailers use bright reds, oranges, and yellows throughout stores, creating energetic, urgent environments that encourage quick browsing and impulse purchases. The stimulating colors create psychological pressure to move quickly, make decisions rapidly, and avoid contemplative evaluation of whether purchases are truly needed. Luxury retailers use blacks, whites, and muted tones to create sophisticated, exclusive atmospheres where the calm environment suggests premium quality and justifies higher prices. The color palette itself becomes part of the value proposition, signaling that this shopping experience is refined and worth premium pricing. Call to action buttons in digital interfaces exploit color psychology, where conversion optimization depends heavily on button color choices. Checkout buttons proceed to payment and add to cart appear in bright reds, oranges, or greens, because testing reveals these colors generate higher click-through rates than neutral alternatives. The urgency red suggests, or the positive affirmation. Green signals override. Hesitation driving clicks that might not occur with grey or blue buttons. Decline options appear in muted colors or as text. Links without color emphasis creating visual hierarchy, where accepting is obvious and declining requires deliberately seeking the less prominent option. Food packaging and restaurant design use color psychology to stimulate appetite and create brand associations. Fast food chains use red and yellow extensively because these colors increase appetite, create sense of energy, and encourage quick consumption rather than lingering. The color combination is so associated with fast food that it appears across competing brands, creating industry-wide visual language that signals cheap, quick, accessible food, even before customers read brand names. Health food products use green packaging to suggest natural, organic, wholesome qualities, regardless of actual ingredients or nutritional value. The green packaging creates health halo effects, where color implies benefits that product content may not deliver. Financial institutions and technology companies use blue extensively in branding and interfaces because blue generates trust feelings, creating psychological comfort with institutions handling money or personal data. The color choice is so deliberate that the dominance of blue in banking and tech represents conscious strategy to manipulate trust perceptions rather than coincidental aesthetic preference. Warning messages and error notifications use red to create alarm and urgency around issues that may not actually require immediate attention. A website displays red warning about account security when the issue is promotional attempt to upsell security products. The red coloring creates panic response that makes customers more likely to purchase unnecessary services. Recognize that color choices in commercial environments are strategic rather than aesthetic, asking why specific colors were chosen and what emotional responses they aim to trigger. Reduce time in environments using stimulating colors that encourage impulse behavior. Recognizing that prolonged exposure to reds, oranges and yellows creates decision fatigue and urgency that serves retailers, not customers. Be skeptical of green packaging implying health or environmental benefits without verifying actual product qualities through ingredient and certification review. Disable high contrast, colorful interfaces when possible, using reading modes or accessibility settings that neutralize color manipulation. Understand that button colors are optimized for company conversions, not user benefit, treating brightly colored calls to action with heightened scrutiny. Color psychology exploitation reveals that companies understand visual stimuli can override rational decision-making by triggering automatic emotional responses that influence behavior before conscious thought intervenes. When every color choice is optimized through testing to maximize clicks, purchases, or trust, rather than selected for actual aesthetic or functional value, the environment becomes psychological battlefield where your emotional responses are weapons used against your own interests. Maintaining awareness that colors are strategic manipulation tools rather than neutral design choices allows you to recognize when visual stimuli are attempting to generate feelings that serve commercial goals rather than reflecting genuine reasons for those emotional states. Word choice manipulation is a psychological manipulation technique where companies deliberately select specific terms, phrases, and framing language to bias perception, shape emotional responses, and guide decisions toward desired outcomes. By replacing neutral descriptive language with strategically chosen words that carry particular connotations, associations, or emotional weights, businesses transform factual communication into persuasive messaging that influences how customers think about products, prices, and purchasing decisions without appearing to make explicit claims or arguments. The power of word choice manipulation lies in how language shapes thought before conscious evaluation occurs. When a company describes a product feature using one set of words versus another, the information communicated may be identical, but the psychological impact differs dramatically. A car described as pre-owned generates different associations than one described as used. Even though both terms refer to the same vehicle, the pre-owned framing suggests value, care, and deliberate selection, while used suggests where depreciation and potential problems. This linguistic sleight of hand allows companies to influence perception through vocabulary selection while maintaining technical accuracy in the information provided. Airlines and hotels exploit word choice manipulation extensively through fees and charges, where strategic terminology obscures what customers are actually paying for. An airline charges a carrier interface charge rather than calling it a booking fee. The technical, obscure language makes the charge seem like unavoidable technology cost rather than arbitrary markup added purely for profit. A hotel imposes a resort fee rather than simply raising room rates. The resort fee terminology suggests that the charge covers valuable amenities, when in reality it is price segmentation designed to advertise lower room rates while extracting higher total revenues through mandatory additions, with misleading names. Financial services use word choice manipulation to make costs disappear behind euphemistic language rather than admitting to sales commissions. Financial advisors receive compensation for advice presented as neutral guidance. Investment products carry expense ratios, administrative fees, and load charges rather than straightforward descriptions of how much of customer money is extracted for company profits. The complex technical terminology makes it difficult for customers to understand that they are paying substantial fees that compound to erode returns over time. Food marketing exploits word choice manipulation through ingredient descriptions and nutritional framing where the same product characteristics can be described in ways that sound healthy or unhealthy, depending on company goals. A snack food is described as contains whole grains, rather than mentioning the substantially higher amounts of sugar and processed ingredients. The whole grain reference creates health halo even when the product is nutritionally poor. Processed meat becomes artisanal or craft, suggesting quality and care, when it is mass-produced using standard industrial processes. Natural becomes meaningless. Marketing term applied to products that are heavily processed, but avoid specific, prohibited ingredients, allowing natural label retail. Clothing uses word choice manipulation through size labeling, where vanity sizing renames sizes to make customers feel better about purchases. A size that was previously labeled large becomes medium, allowing customers to purchase smaller labeled size. Even though physical dimensions remain identical, the linguistic manipulation makes customers feel they are smaller than they actually are, increasing satisfaction and purchase likelihood. Technology companies describe data collection as personalization and tracking as analytics to make surveillance sound beneficial rather than invasive. We collect data to improve your experience. Sounds helpful, while we surveil your behavior to sell advertising. Sounds invasive. Even though both describe identical practices, read terms carefully, translating euphemistic language into direct descriptions of what companies are actually doing. When you see personalization, think surveillance. When you see administrative fee, think markup. When you see craft or artisanal, verify whether production actually differs from industrial standard. Compare product descriptions across sources, noting how different sellers describe identical items with varying language to identify which descriptions are neutral versus manipulative. Look for what information is emphasized versus what is buried, recognizing that word choice reveals company priorities rather than objective product qualities. Word choice manipulation succeeds because language feels transparent when it is actually interpretive. The same facts described with different vocabulary create completely different impressions, allowing companies to technically tell the truth while psychologically deceiving through strategic terminology. When businesses invest in focus groups and linguistic testing to identify which words generate desired emotional responses rather than which words most accurately describe reality, they reveal that manipulation through vocabulary is more profitable than straightforward communication. Understanding that word choice is never neutral in commercial contexts allows you to translate marketing language into factual descriptions, ensuring that decisions are based on actual product characteristics rather than on emotional associations triggered through carefully selected persuasive terminology. Reciprocity exploitation is a psychological manipulation tactic where businesses provide small unsolicited gifts, samples or services to create psychological obligation that compels customers to reciprocate through purchases larger than the value of what they received. This technique weaponizes the deeply embedded human norm of reciprocity, the social expectation that when someone gives you something, you should give something back, transforming what appears as generosity into calculated investment, designed to trigger indebtedness that overrides rational purchase decisions. Human reciprocity norms evolved to enable cooperation and social bonding in small groups where mutual aid and exchange built relationships and ensured survival. These norms remain powerfully active, even in commercial contexts, where no genuine relationship exists and where the initial gift was strategically provided to manipulate behavior rather than offered from genuine generosity. When a company gives you something for free, your brain activates reciprocity instincts that create uncomfortable psychological pressure to give something back, even when you understand intellectually that the free gift was marketing strategy. The discomfort of feeling indebted often exceeds the value of what was received, making people willing to overpay through reciprocal purchases just to discharge the obligation and restore psychological equilibrium. Grocery stores and warehouse retailers deploy reciprocity exploitation through sample stations where staff offer small portions of food products to shoppers. These samples cost the company pennies but create reciprocity pressure that drives purchases far exceeding sample value. A customer accepts a small cube of cheese, then feels obligated to purchase the entire package, even when they had no prior interest in that product. The sample creates artificial indebtedness, where walking away feels ungrateful or socially inappropriate, even though the sample was provided specifically to manufacture that pressure. The sample station worker's friendliness intensifies the obligation, creating personal interaction that makes refusing to purchase feel like rejecting a gift from someone who was kind to you. Cosmetics and beauty retailers use reciprocity through makeovers, consultations, and generous free samples. Provided during shopping visits, a customer enters a store for one product and receives complimentary makeup application, skin analysis, or fragrance samples, along with personalized recommendations. The extensive attention and free samples create overwhelming obligation to purchase something to justify the time and products the consultant provided, even when the customer's original intention was a single small purchase. The reciprocity pressure transforms a quick transaction into a substantial sale driven entirely by manufactured indebtedness. Charities exploit reciprocity through unsolicited gifts, included with donation requests, organizations, mail address, labels, calendars, greeting cards, or small tokens, along with fundraising appeals. The unrequested gifts create immediate obligation, where discarding the items feels wasteful, but keeping them without donating feels like theft. Recipients often send donations not because they support the cause, but because the unsolicited gift created psychological debt. They need to discharge the tactic is so effective that charities invest substantial resources in gift production, despite never asking whether recipients wanted the items. Restaurants use reciprocity through complimentary bread appetizers or after-meal mints that create obligation to tip generously or return as customers servers who provide exceptional attention, refill drinks frequently or bring small extras, create reciprocity pressure that increases tip percentages beyond what service quality alone would justify. The extras are investments in obligation manufacturing. Software companies offer extended free trials with full feature access, creating obligation when users invest time learning the platform and integrating it into workflows. By the time the trial ends, users feel they owe the company for the free period, making them more likely to convert to paid subscriptions than if they had started with paid access immediately. politely decline free samples when you had no prior interest in the product. Recognizing that accepting creates psychological obligation, return unsolicited gifts from charities with notes that you did not request them and will not donate under obligation if you accept samples or gifts. Consciously remind yourself that these were provided as marketing strategy, not personal generosity, eliminating the reciprocity. Obligation: be willing to accept free offers without reciprocating. Recognizing that companies calculate these offerings to generate profit, and your participation without purchase still serves their purposes through foot traffic and visibility. Reciprocity. Exploitation transforms social norms that evolved for cooperation into commercial weapons that manipulate through manufactured indebtedness when companies provide free offerings. They are not being generous, they are making calculated investments in your psychological discomfort, knowing that the pressure to reciprocate will drive purchases far exceeding the cost of what they provided. Understanding this allows you to accept samples and gifts when genuinely wanted, without feeling obligated to discharge artificial debt created purely to override your rational purchase decisions. Commitment escalation is a psychological manipulation technique where salespeople secure small initial agreements, then systematically increase request size, knowing that each commitment makes the next larger commitment psychologically easier to accept, because humans have powerful drive toward consistency. Once someone says yes to something minor, they feel internal pressure to continue saying yes to progressively larger requests to maintain consistent self-image as someone who supports this cause, trusts this salesperson, or is committed to this purchase journey. This manipulation succeeds by exploiting commitment and consistency. Bias, one of the strongest forces in human decision-making. Once people take a position, make a statement, or commit to an action, they experience psychological discomfort. If subsequent choices contradict that initial commitment, the brain works to maintain coherent narrative where actions align with previous decisions. Making each small yes creates momentum toward larger yeses that would have been rejected if requested initially. Without the preceding chain of smaller commitments, the technique transforms customers from skeptical evaluators into partners invested in seeing the transaction through to completion. Car dealership structure. Entire sales processes around commitment escalation, where each step represents small commitment leading to larger ones. A customer walking into a showroom is first asked to share what they are looking for. Not a purchase request, but an information-sharing commitment that feels harmless. Next, they are asked to test, drive a vehicle, committing time and experiencing ownership, sensations that create emotional investment. After the test drive, they are asked to sit down and discuss options, committing to continue the process. Another small step, then comes discussion of monthly payment preferences, getting customer to verbally state affordability, creating commitment to that budget range. Finally, when purchase decision arrives, the customer has made so many small commitments that refusing the sale means admitting all previous steps were wasted. Effort, consistency, bias makes completing the purchase feel like natural progression rather than major financial decision. Non-profit fundraisers use commitment escalation, beginning with petition signatures or social media follows that require no financial commitment, but establish identity as someone who supports the cause. Once the signature is secured, future requests for donations refer back to previous support. You signed our petition showing you care. Now will you contribute $5 to make real impact? The initial low-cost commitment makes subsequent higher-cost requests feel consistent with the established identity as supporter. Multi-level marketing schemes. Deploy commitment escalation, where recruits are brought in through low-risk promises. Try our products yourself before deciding whether to sell them. Once recruits purchase starter inventory, they have financial and identity commitment, making it psychologically difficult to abandon the venture without trying to recoup investment through sales efforts that require recruiting others, perpetuating the cycle. Each additional step attending meetings, purchasing more inventory. Recruiting team members represents escalating commitment that becomes harder to reverse. Timeshare presentations use commitment escalation, systematically beginning with agreement to attend presentation for incentive. Gift attending requires committing several hours. Once their prospects are asked about vacation habits, committing to interest in travel, then to tour properties, committing physical presence and attention, then to imagine owning specific unit, committing imagination and desire. By the time purchase conversation arrives, prospects have committed hours of time, emotional energy, and explicit statements about wanting better vacations, making the timeshare seem like consistent conclusion rather than impulsive major purchase. Recognize when conversations include multiple small commitment requests before major decisions are presented. Be willing to reverse course at any point, regardless of previous commitments. Understanding that consistency is not more important than making correct current choice. Treat each decision independently, asking whether this specific request makes sense regardless of what you agreed to previously. Walk away from situations where you feel pressure to continue because of small previous commitments that were designed specifically to trap you in escalating commitment chains. Commitment escalation reveals that sophisticated salespeople understand that major decisions are easier to secure through accumulated small agreements than through direct requests. By recognizing this pattern, you maintain ability to evaluate each request on its own merits, refusing to let past commitments dictate present choices and walking away at any stage when the cumulative commitment path leads somewhere you do not actually want to go. Brand tribalism is a psychological manipulation technique where companies engineer product choices into identity markers that create in-group and out-group dynamics, transforming consumer preferences into tribal affiliations where brand loyalty becomes part of personal identity, and competing brands are treated not as alternative products, but as opposing teams or ideologies. This tactic exploits deep human tendencies toward group belonging, social identity, and competitive comparison, redirecting these powerful social instincts away from meaningful communities toward commercial relationships that serve corporate revenue rather than genuine human connection. Tribal psychology evolved in contexts where group membership determined survival, access to resources, and social support. Identifying with a group and differentiating from outsiders served essential functions in maintaining cohesion and cooperation. Modern brand tribalism hijacks these ancient instincts by positioning consumer choices as tribal markers, where purchasing decisions become statements about who you are, which group you belong to, and which competing groups you oppose. The psychological intensity of these brand attachments can rival political or religious affiliations, with brand advocates defending their choices against criticism, exhibiting loyalty despite product shortcomings, and viewing competing brand users with suspicion or contempt that has no rational basis in actual product differences. Technology brands exemplify tribalism engineering where smartphone operating system choice becomes identity rather than practical decision. Apple versus Android users develop distinct tribal identities, with each group believing their choice reflects superior values. Intelligence or taste, the rivalry is deliberately cultivated through marketing that emphasizes lifestyle identity and values rather than technical specifications. Apple positions itself as creative, innovative, and design-focused, attracting users who want those identity associations. Android brands position as customizable, open, and technically sophisticated, attracting users who value those characteristics. The intense loyalty these brands command means customers defend their choices, even when competing products offer better value or features for their specific needs, because admitting competitor superiority would require abandoning tribal identity. Athletic brands create tribalism through sponsored athlete partnerships and lifestyle marketing, where wearing Nike versus Adidas versus Under Armour signals tribal allegiance rather than functional preference. These brands invest heavily in cultivating distinct identities and oppositional positioning, encouraging customers to identify as Nike people or Adidas loyalists who view competing brands as inferior or misaligned with their values. The tribalism ensures customers purchase multiple products from the same brand, even when mixing brands would provide better value or performance, because tribal loyalty demands consistency. Automotive brands engineer tribalism, where vehicle choice becomes deeply embedded in identity. Truck owners develop strong brand loyalty, defending their chosen manufacturer against competing brands, with the fervour usually reserved for sports team rivalries. The tribalism is so intense that families develop multi-generational brand loyalties, where children inherit parental brand preferences without objective evaluation of whether those brands currently offer best value or quality. Gaming console manufacturers deliberately cultivate tribalism through exclusive game titles that fragment gaming communities into competing tribes. PlayStation versus Xbox versus Nintendo users form distinct identities and engage in often hostile debates about which platform is superior. Even though all platforms play similar games, with minor technical differences, the manufactured competition serves corporate interests by preventing users from switching platforms due to social identity costs. Coffee brands create tribalism, where choice of Starbucks versus Dunkin' versus local shops becomes lifestyle statement rather than beverage preference. Customers develop fierce loyalty to their chosen coffee tribe, viewing alternatives with disdain that seems disproportionate to actual product differences. Resist identity attachment to brands by treating products as functional tools rather than tribal markers. Evaluate each purchase decision independently based on current product quality and value, rather than past brand loyalty. Recognize that companies deliberately cultivate tribalism to prevent rational comparison shopping that would benefit consumers at corporate expense. Engage with multiple brands in same category, maintaining flexibility to choose best current option rather than maintaining artificial consistency. Seek friendships and community based on genuine shared values rather than consumer preferences. Understanding that tribal belonging should come from meaningful connections, not commercial relationships. Brand tribalism succeeds by redirecting human need for belonging and identity toward commercial relationships that benefit corporations while providing only hollow simulation of genuine community. When companies invest in engineering tribal conflict between their customers and competing brand customers, they reveal that division and emotional manipulation are more profitable than product quality that would speak for itself. Understanding that brand choices are commercial transactions, not identity statements, allows you to maintain the flexibility to make rational purchasing decisions based on current needs and best available options, rather than defending past choices through tribal loyalty that serves corporate revenue optimization rather than your actual interests or well-being.